In the heart of the sleepless city, where neon lights whisper secrets to the wandering souls and every shadow seems to hold a hidden story, a new tale of passion, mystery, and inner turmoil is about to unfold. Imagine stepping into a world where dreams clash with harsh realities, and the pulse of ambition races against the slow, steady beat of a yearning heart. Tonight, your journey begins with Emma, a young, determined soul who has just arrived in New York, leaving behind a life that once confined her, only to be swallowed by the ceaseless urban rhythm of possibility. Emma's first moments in her new apartment were anything but grand. The space was minuscule, a literal shoebox that barely offered a glimpse of light through a single tired window. The walls, draped in a washed-out beige that whispered of forgotten dreams, and the rattling radiator, almost like an old, stubborn spirit with a grudge, only added to the sense of isolation. Yet, even in this cramped cell, Emma's heart throbbed with the promise of rebirth. Every creak of the floor, every echo in the stale air, was a reminder that even the smallest space could be transformed into a castle if one dared to dream. The phone buzzed with a vibrancy that shattered the silence, like a sudden burst of color on a gray canvas. Kit, her exuberant best friend, rang through with an insistence that tonight was no ordinary night. "Tonight's the night, Emma. You've got to embrace this chaos. Let the city know you're here," she urged, her voice sparkling with unstoppable energy. There was no time for second thoughts. New York was a crucible of ambition, and every inch of it demanded that you reveal your true, unfiltered self, no matter how unpolished it seemed. With a hesitant yet determined sigh, Emma began to prepare. The transformation was not just about changing her look, but about shedding the weight of her past self. In a mirror that reflected more than just her image, she saw a young woman standing at the precipice of destiny, shoulders squared against the invisible pressures of doubt. A slinky black dress, rediscovered from the clutter of forgotten thrift store gems, became her armor, a silent promise to herself that she was ready to conquer the night. Each detail, from the whisper-soft fabric to the meticulously chosen heels, resonated with the unspoken ambition that burned inside her. As she stepped out onto the bustling streets of New York, the city greeted her with its age-old allure, the cacophony of horns, the mesmerizing blur of lights, and the pulsating rhythm of an urban heartbeat that never ceased. The energy was intoxicating, a powerful symphony of possibility that filled the air. Yet, within the vibrant chaos, there lingered an undercurrent of loneliness, a quiet, persistent echo of her inner struggle. Emma was here to prove herself, yet every step she took felt like a battle between hope and the haunting whisper of self-doubt. The party promised a temporary escape from the isolation, a chance to lose herself in a moment of electric romance. Imagine entering a lofty, chic setting in Soho, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking, glittering view of the Manhattan skyline, a view that seemed as infinite and mysterious as the dreams she once held dear. The space was alive, with laughter, artful conversations, and a palpable sense of luxury, yet among the dazzling glitter and sparkling champagne, Emma's heart still carried a quiet solitude. She clutched her glass like a lifebuoy, the cool liquid a brief solace, against the tide of uncertainty raging within her. And then, amidst the haze of conversations and the whirl of stylish silhouettes, she noticed him. Standing near the bar, a figure carved from midnight, tall, dark, and impossibly handsome. His presence alone commanded the room. His eyes, dark and enigmatic, seemed to look straight through the superficial chatter, seeking the raw, unguarded truth of her soul. For a fleeting moment, as the din of the party softened into silence, Emma felt that perhaps this stranger held the key to the hidden realms of her heart, a key that could unlock courage, passion, and maybe even redemption. But there was something more. A hint of melancholy and struggle that danced in his gaze, a silent acknowledgement of battles fought and dreams deferred. In his calm, measured smile, there lay a promise of connection, forged in the crucible of shared vulnerabilities, and an invitation to take a leap into the unknown. Emma's pulse quickened. This was not just an encounter. It was the spark of something transformative, a catalyst that could set her on a path filled with unexpected twists, where the allure of romance intertwined with the raw edges of ambition and despair. In that charged moment, the city seemed to hold its breath. The bright lights and the seductive hum of urban energy became the backdrop to an intimate drama, a dance between the allure of destiny and the quiet power of one's inner resolve. As Emma and the enigmatic stranger locked eyes, the world around them faded into a blur of colors and sound, leaving behind only the palpable magnetic pull of fate. This was the beginning of a journey where every whispered promise, every stolen glance, would lead to a collision of hearts and a confrontation with the deepest corners of the human spirit. So, hold on to this tale as it unfolds, a tapestry woven with modern verve, cinematic imagery, and the raw intensity of dreams made real. Let your imagination soar, for tonight, in the midst of New York's relentless hustle, a new chapter of passion, mystery, and self-discovery is set to begin. Prepare to be captivated, to question, and to wonder. Can love be the strength that conquers even the darkest of inner demons? Stay tuned, for what happens next will leave you breathless, yearning, and utterly transformed. Chapter 1. The Spark. New beginnings in a tiny apartment. Emma's heart pounded with a mix of excitement and apprehension as she stepped over the worn threshold of her new New York apartment. The space was modest, no more than a shoebox, by the towering standards of the city, but as she stood amid its sparse furnishings, a quiet determination began to fill her. Every inch of this tiny refuge was both a stark reminder of her humble beginnings and a blank canvas upon which she vowed to paint her big city dreams. As she closed the door behind her, echoes of her father's old admonitions reverberated in her mind. Emma, you really think this is what you're going to call home? Those words, laced with disappointment and disbelief, had haunted her for years. Yet here she was, defying every expectation with the fierce hope that bloomed inside her. The apartment's walls, coated in a tired, washed-out beige, seemed to whisper forgotten stories of lost ambition, but Emma refused to let their melancholy tone define her future. The only window in the cramped room barely invited a timid trickle of daylight to dance across the peeling floorboards. Outside, the city roared with promise, its vibrant energy a constant reminder that she was meant for something far greater than these four walls. But even as sparse beams of light struggled to break through, Emma found solace in the gentle radiance they offered. A metaphor, perhaps, for the light of her own aspirations, fighting through the darkness of doubt. A creak echoed from the corner of the apartment, punctuating the silence like the hesitant voice of an old friend. It came from the ancient radiator, a relic that groaned and rattled as if it harbored a personal vendetta against the stillness of the room. Despite its stubborn protest, Emma couldn't help but smile at the absurdity. Every clank and shudder of the metal served as a quirky soundtrack to this new chapter in her life, a reminder that beauty sometimes lies in imperfection. With her suitcase still open, Emma set about unpacking her few belongings. Among the scattered items, her most prized possessions were not the designer bags or the trendy accessories she once coveted. They were the tattered sketchbooks filled with her daring ideas and the remnants of her old life, reminders of who she had been, and more importantly, who she hoped to become. Each sketch, every spontaneous doodle, whispered promises of creativity and resilience. They were the tokens of her passion, and in this tiny space, they began to transform into blueprints for a future that stretched far beyond these modest walls. In a moment of introspection, Emma paused by a forgotten corner of the room, a spot where, despite the inadequacy of light, her dreams took on a tangible form. Here, among remnants of a life once defined by limitations, she envisioned a palace of possibilities. The bare walls, though lacking the warmth of color, became the backdrop for her imagination to run wild. Every crack and every faded streak was reinterpreted as a mark of history, a reminder that every great story begins with humble origins. Her mind drifted back to her father's voice, soft yet piercing. "Don't waste your life in a shoebox, Emma." But instead of echoing defeat, those words now fueled her determination. They pushed her to see this tiny apartment not as a cage, but as a launch pad, a stepping stone toward the grandeur that awaited her in the sprawling urban labyrinth of New York. In the silence of the early morning, her inner dialogue shifted from self-doubt to an intimate conversation with her own spirit. "This is your beginning," she whispered to herself. "And every great journey starts with a single brave step." The simplicity of her surroundings was in striking contrast to the vivid dreams that burned within her. Here, in the solitude of that modest space, every meager detail became imbued with a poetic sense of hope. The insufficient light that barely illuminated the corners of the room, instead of casting shadows of despair, sparkled like the first stars of a promising night sky, small yet determined to shine. In that dim glow, Emma sensed the promise of transformation. What seemed like a dreary, forgotten den could soon be reborn as the sanctuary of creativity, a place where each line of her sketches and every stroke of her pen would weave the fabric of her destiny. As the hours passed, the apartment slowly transformed from a sterile, impersonal space into a setting alive with possibility. Emma rearranged her belongings with a careful touch, as if each placement was an act of rebellion against the very confines of her circumstances. The worn-out furniture, though sparse, took on new meaning, a symbolic representation of the life she was leaving behind and the promise of a future yet to be built. Every misplaced item, every gap in the barren walls, became an invitation to fill the space with her vibrant ideas, her unyielding spirit. In that quiet, unassuming apartment, Emma found a peculiar kind of freedom, a liberation from the expectations and limitations imposed on her by the past. Here, amid the creaks, the fading hues, and the relentless hum of a stubborn radiator, she discovered that even the most unremarkable beginnings could spark a revolution of the soul. With a deep breath, she embraced this tiny sanctuary as a cherished stepping stone on her audacious journey into a world where dreams were meant to be chased without compromise. This was not merely a room in a building, it was the starting line of a race toward her destiny. And as Emma stood alone in her new home, the worn-out walls listening silently, she promised herself that no matter how small the beginning, her heart would always dare to dream beyond the confines of any shoebox. Chapter 1. The Spark. A call to celebrate the new life. Just as Emma began to settle into the silence of her tiny apartment, a sudden buzz from her phone shattered the quiet. It was Kit, her endlessly energetic best friend, lighting up the screen with a message that could only be described as a rallying cry. "Tonight's the night." Kit's voice was practically electric as it filled the room, urging Emma to step out of the confines of her new, modest world and embrace everything that New York had to offer. In that moment, Emma felt a cocktail of nerves and anticipation twirling inside her, a delicate dance between the anxiety of the unknown and the irresistible promise of a fresh start. "Come on, Emma. You've just landed in the city of dreams. It's time to celebrate your debut in the Big Apple." Kit's voice was buoyant and unyielding, a stark contrast to the quiet introspection that had marked her first hours in the shoebox apartment. There was a playful urgency in every word, as if Kit were determined to prove that tonight wasn't just another evening, it was the threshold to a new chapter where possibilities shimmered on every corner. At the sound of Kit's enthusiastic call, Emma's mind immediately raced back to all those moments of self-doubt that had shadowed her journey. Yet now, encapsulated in the warmth of her friend's encouragement, a spark of rebellion against that doubt ignited within her. "Maybe it's time I stop hiding in these four walls," Emma thought, her inner voice mingling with Kit's insistent energy. It was a moment that felt like the cusp of transformation, a time when the thrill of embracing the unknown outweighed the comfort of familiar isolation. Standing there in her modest living room, Emma allowed herself a brief pause to reflect on the significance of this call. The hum of the city outside was a constant reminder of the endless energy beyond her window, the pulse of ambition, the shimmer of lights, and the promise of stories yet untold. And tonight, amidst that pulsating urban life, she was meant to shine. The idea of celebrating her New York debut, of stepping boldly into a world brimming with strangers and stories, filled her with a mix of exhilarating hope and a tinge of trepidation. Kit's words reverberated in her mind. Tonight's the night for you to show the world who Emma Carter truly is. There was magic in those words, a challenge to shed the burdens of past failures and to rise, vibrant and courageous, into an arena where every setback was just a stepping stone. Emma could almost see herself in the reflections of the city's towering skyscrapers, a determined spirit amidst the infinite cityscape, daring to claim her rightful place in a world too vast and dazzling to be contained. The playful banter between the two friends provided both levity and grounding. Kit, ever the champion of seizing the moment, teased, "You won't be coming in your cozy pajamas, right? I expect to see that killer dress you almost forgot you owned." Emma chuckled at the memory of Kit rummaging through her chaotic wardrobe. Her knack for finding a hidden gem among thrift store finds that somehow transformed into the perfect outfit for a night of endless possibilities. The thought sent a ripple of excitement through her. Maybe tonight, she would not only prove her mettle but also discover a side of herself she'd long kept under wraps. With every passing second, the tension of staying home warred with the thrill of venturing into the unknown. Emma's heart whispered that this was more than just a celebration. It was a declaration of independence, a promise that her life in New York would be defined by bold risks and even bolder dreams. There was a delicious irony in the prospect of striding into an exclusive downtown party, even if she felt out of place at times. Here, amidst glittering lights and high-flying chatter, she would be exactly where she needed to be. Not because she was already perfect, but because she was on the brink of becoming so. As she paced the small space, imagining the vibrant scene that awaited her, a chic loft with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of a glittering Manhattan skyline, Emma felt a peculiar surge of empowerment. It wasn't just about proving herself to everyone else. It was about proving it to her own heart, silenced too long by worry and hesitation. Tonight, she would step out of her comfort zone and into a realm where every encounter and every whispered secret held the potential to redefine her future. Kit's voice, warm and insistent even over the phone, continued to urge her on, mixing playful laughter with sincere encouragement. "Emma, remember, even if you're a little nervous, just let the city's energy carry you. New York is about embracing the chaos and finding beauty in the unexpected." Those words resonated like a mantra. Each syllable reinforced the truth that this city, with all its daunting size and relentless pace, was exactly where dreams could sprout wings. In that moment, Emma took a deep, steady breath, feeling the weight of both fear and opportunity in equal measure. It was the call to adventure she had been waiting for, a moment so charged with possibility that it set her pulse racing and painted the gray walls of her apartment with vibrant hues of hope. Tonight, she would walk out into the heart of New York, not as a timid newcomer, but as a woman ready to take on the world, every step echoing with the promise of a new beginning. So, with the gentle encouragement of her friend echoing in her ears, Emma chose to embrace the night. The call to celebrate was not just an invitation. It was a rite of passage, an affirmation that no matter how humble the start, the journey was hers to command, and her future, bright and vast as the city itself, awaited her enthusiastic step into the unknown. Chapter 1. The Spark, Transformation and Outfit. Makeover. In the soft glow of her modest apartment, Emma stood before a mirror that reflected not only her image, but the hopes of a new beginning. The room was still echoing with the call to celebrate her New York debut, And now it was time for her transformation. A rebirth embodied in a wardrobe makeover that would bridge the gap between her humble thrift store finds and the glamorous persona she longed to embrace. Emma's eyes danced over the assorted pieces scattered on her unadorned bed. There were faded blouses, mismatched accessories, and worn-out sneakers, relics of a past life that no longer resonated with the vibrant energy of her dreams. Despite the imperfections, each item held a memory of times when she dared to hope, and that lingering familiarity added layers to the person she was becoming. Yet, with a deep breath, she resolved that tonight was the moment to shed the remnants of self-doubt and embrace something bold. Just as Emma pondered her next step, her phone buzzed with another message from Kit, whose contagious enthusiasm had already nudged her out the door earlier. "Babe, you're not going to show up looking like you just came from a bargain bin, are you?" Kit's playful text was punctuated by a string of emojis that lit up the screen. An invitation to a secret transformation, one that promised to turn the ordinary into extraordinary. Emma hesitated for a heartbeat. She knew Kit's style was as sharp as it was spontaneous, and that she possessed an innate talent for pulling hidden gems out of a cluttered closet. "I'll trust your judgment," Emma typed back, her fingers trembling slightly with anticipation. In that moment, she felt a surge of determination, a whisper from within that said, "You deserve to shine." Within minutes, Kit arrived at the apartment, a whirlwind of energy and wit. With her keen eye, Kit assessed the pile of clothes and rummaged through the assortment like a treasure hunt expert. "Okay, Emma, let's rescue this look," she declared, her tone mixing humor with gravity. Kit's hands flew over the garments until they settled on a slinky black dress that Emma had nearly forgotten existed. The dress was elegant in its simplicity, a perfect blend of modern chic and timeless allure. "Look at this," Kit said, with a flourish, holding up the dress against the light. "It's like it's been waiting for you to rediscover its magic." The fabric shimmered subtly, catching the scant light that spilled through the single window and reflecting it in graceful undulations. To Emma, it was more than just a piece of clothing. It was a symbol of possibility, a silent promise that she could step into the vibrant New York scene with confidence. As Kit laid out the dress on the creaky wooden table, she continued, "Pair this with those killer heels you bought for your cousin's wedding, and you're going to look like $1,000,000. Emma couldn't help but chuckle at the casual certainty in Kit's voice. Her friend had always possessed the rare ability to transform a simple, unassuming outfit into an expression of bold identity and style. In that moment, the thrift store finds started to make sense, not as relics of a bygone era, but as stepping stones towards a newfound empowerment. While Kit fussed over the minute details, a perfectly positioned bracelet here, an artful twist of hair there, Emma's initial self-consciousness began to dissolve. With each mirrored glance, she saw a reflection that was evolving from timid uncertainty into a figure of confident allure. The dress hugged her curves with a gentle yet unmistakable embrace, whispering encouragement as it draped gracefully around her frame. It felt like the dress was an extension of her own aspirations, sculpting a silhouette that was ready to take on the dazzling chaos of the city. In the midst of this sartorial transformation, Emma's inner voice, which once trembled with doubt, grew steadier. "Maybe," she thought, "just maybe I can be the Emma Carter who belongs in this city." Every stitch of the dress, every subtle detail of its design, resonated like a symphony of self-assurance. The fabric seemed to murmur secrets of confidence and sophistication, messages that awakened long-dormant parts of her spirit. Kit, ever the encouraging mentor, gave Emma a knowing smile. "You see it? You're not just changing your outfit, you're changing how you see yourself. Tonight you're going to own the room, not because you're perfect, but because you're unapologetically you." Her words reverberated in the small space, filling the air with an irresistible energy that made Emma's heart beat faster with anticipation. As they finalized the finishing touches, a sweep of subtle eyeliner here, a perfectly applied lipstick there. The transformation was complete. Emma looked in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Gone was the timid soul haunted by past criticisms. In her place stood a woman exuding a quiet power, an undeniable elegance. Every line, every curve, every glint in her eyes now spoke of resilience and the courage to reinvent oneself. In that private moment of preparation, the tiny apartment transformed from a confining capsule to a launchpad for dreams. With Kit's quick wit and nurturing guidance, Emma had not only reinvented her look, but had also begun to rewrite her narrative. What once felt like a series of mismatched fragments had coalesced into a mosaic of confidence, a promise that, no matter where one starts, there is always a way to rise and shine. Now, as the final moments ticked away before heading out, Emma smiled softly at her reflection. The dress wasn't just a garment. It was an emblem of her journey, a testimony to the brave leap she was about to take into the pulsating heart of New York. With renewed determination and the echo of Kit's spirited encouragement in her ears, Emma stepped forward into the night, ready to embrace every moment of her new life. Chapter 1: The Spark. Stepping out into the night, with the transformation complete and a newfound fire kindling within her, Emma took a final glance in the mirror before she and Kit stepped out into the cool embrace of the New York night. The apartment door closed behind them with a quiet finality, sealing off the past and ushering in a world pulsing with excitement and possibility. As they emerged onto the bustling Brooklyn streets, the rhythmic clatter of subway trains and the distant hum of city life filled the air, creating a raw yet authentic soundtrack to Emma's debut into a life that promised both dreams and challenges. The familiar gritty charm of Brooklyn, its worn sidewalks, scattered street vendors, and the undying spirit of its residents, stood in stark contrast to the dazzling, almost surreal realm that awaited them downtown. It was as if two different worlds converged at the edge of the borough, and tonight, Emma was about to step from one into the other. Kit, ever the beacon of positivity and style, grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her along the busy avenue as neon signs and towering billboards danced against the night sky. "This is it, babe. The city is calling and we're about to answer," Kit chimed, her laughter mingling with the urban buzz. Every step they took was infused with a magnetic energy. The rapid-fire honking of yellow cabs, the gentle drizzle that blurred the harsh neon lights into soft, inviting hues, and the murmurs of countless voices weaving together into a single, indistinguishable yet compelling chorus of the metropolis. As they navigated the labyrinth of winding streets, Emma's gaze was continuously drawn upward. Above, the skyscrapers seemed to stretch endlessly, their glass facades reflecting a riot of colors that sparkled like fragments of dreams scattered across the cosmos. The contrasting textures of the city, where gritty, time-worn brick met sleek, modern steel, mirrored the tumultuous emotions swirling within her. Each illuminated window was like a tiny spotlight, inviting her to envision the lives behind them, lives filled with the same mix of hope and vulnerability that she felt in her own heart. Amid the urban tapestry, the bright promise of Soho beckoned in the distance like a scene from a meticulously directed film. The area was renowned for its exclusive downtown parties, a dazzling haven where art, fashion, and high society converged in an almost ethereal display of glamour. The thought of stepping into such a surreal environment stirred both excitement and an undercurrent of trepidation in Emma. Part of her reveled at the prospect of being part of something so extravagant, yet another part whispered doubts about her belonging. Could she truly blend into this world where elegance and opulence defined every moment? In the back of her mind, a silent battle raged, a clash between the thrill of endless opportunity and the fear of being an imposter in a world that seemed far too polished for her genuine, unrefined self. As the skyline grew nearer, the transition became palpable. On one side, the raw, uncompromised reality of Brooklyn showcased its vibrant energy in its most authentic form. On the other, the glittering promise of a Soho party, with its movie-like quality and air of exclusivity, stretched out before her like an open invitation to a dream she had always yearned for, but never fully believed was within reach. Every sound around her, a street performer's soulful melody, the soft murmur of late-night conversations spilling out from bustling cafes, and the constant reassuring clack of her own footsteps on the pavement, melded together into an intoxicating harmony that both calmed and excited her. The ambient city noise was punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter and the occasional clink of glasses, hinting at the celebration that lay ahead. With each step, Emma felt her heart both soar with anticipation and tighten with a cautious anxiety, a compelling reminder that every great adventure demanded courage, even in the face of uncertainty. Just when the delicate equilibrium of her emotions seemed poised to tip too far into nervous trepidation, a fleeting glimpse in the distance caught her eye. Under the glow of a marquee lit with soft, warm lights, a cluster of elegantly dressed individuals gathered, their silhouettes outlined against a backdrop that evoked the dreamy charm of a cinematic masterpiece. The promise of an exclusive downtown party, where every detail had been curated to evoke beauty and sophistication, suddenly transformed from a vague hope into an almost tangible reality. In that moment, Emma knew that this encounter was not just about mingling at a party. It was the threshold of a profound transformation, an adventure that would challenge her perceptions of who she was and what she could become. Feeling an inexplicable pull, Emma looked at Kit, whose eyes shone with unspoken excitement. "Are you ready?" Kit asked softly, as if sharing a secret meant only for them. Emma's answer was a tentative smile, an acknowledgement of both her longing to belong and her determination to carve her own space in this mesmerizing city. With her heart pounding, she took a resolute step forward, leaving behind the familiar streets of Brooklyn and embracing the radiant promise of an exclusive Soho soiree that would forever change the contours of her destiny. In that transformative moment, amidst the pulsating rhythm of New York night, Emma realized that the journey ahead wasn't merely about stepping into a party. It was about stepping into herself. And as the city swallowed them up in its dazzling, ever-shifting embrace, she felt a spark of hope, poised to ignite into a flame that would redefine her future. Chapter 1. The Spark. At the party and first glimpse of intrigue, stepping through the sleek glass doors of the chic loft, Emma was immediately enveloped in a world of dazzling contrasts. The expansive space boasted floor-to-ceiling windows that framed an uninterrupted view of the glittering Manhattan skyline, a breathtaking panorama of twinkling lights and high-reaching dreams. Lively chatter filled the air, merging with the soft hum of music and the gentle clink of glasses in a symphony that resonated with the promise of an unforgettable night. As she entered the party, Emma's heart fluttered wildly between exhilaration and uncertainty. Every corner of the loft vibrated with an energy that was both intoxicating and intimidating. Groups of elegantly dressed guests moved fluidly around the room, their laughter and animated conversations blending into a lively, high-society tapestry. Yet amid the refined ambiance and glamorous chatter, Emma couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider, a lone figure clinging to a glass of champagne, as if it were the only shield against the overwhelming tide of opulence. The soft, ambient lighting accentuated the rich decor, from the shimmer of crystal chandeliers to the reflective surfaces that caught and magnified every subtle nuance of color and movement. In one direction, a long, gleaming bar served exotic cocktails with flourish, while at another, artfully arranged tables overflowed with hors d'oeuvres that looked almost too beautiful to eat. But for Emma, it was the sensory overload, each sight, sound, and fragrance, that painted a vivid picture of a world she both craved and feared. Her eyes darted from one detail to the next. The rhythmic laughter of strangers, the interplay of murmurs of admiration, and the soft jazz that curled through the air all whispered of a life far removed from the rough-hewn reality of Brooklyn. Yet, beneath the sparkle of the loft's luxurious decor, Emma's inner dialogue revealed the raw truth of her heart. As she clutched her champagne glass tightly, its cool condensation trickling down her fingers, she couldn't help but wonder if she truly belonged in this glittering enclave of sophistication. Within the depths of her mind, a cocktail of self-doubt and an insatiable desire to be seen mingled. Every polished smile and confident stride she observed made her question her own imperfections. "Am I really one of them?" she mused silently, acutely aware of how her modest beginnings clashed with the surrounding elegance. But just as quickly as the doubt crept in, a spark of hope rekindled within her, reminding her that tonight was a celebration of new beginnings, a chance to break free from the confines of her past. Among the throng of elegantly attired guests, her gaze caught the striking contrast of movement and stillness across the expansive room. It was then, a brief, almost cinematic pause, when she noticed him. In the half-light near a sleek, modern seating area, a tall figure emerged. Dark, enigmatic eyes scanned the room with quiet assurance, and there was an unmistakable air of mystery woven into his every gesture. His presence was magnetic, drawing her attention like a hidden force that refused to be ignored. In that fleeting moment, the vivacious buzz of the party seemed to recede, leaving behind a fragile pocket of silence where only the spark of intrigue remained. Emma's heart gave an involuntary flutter as she watched him move with the smooth, deliberate grace of someone who belonged effortlessly in this world. There was something about the way he carried himself, a subtle blend of quiet confidence and hidden depth that stirred a cocktail of emotions within her. The prospect of an encounter so charged with possibility sent a shiver racing down her spine. The juxtaposition of her own vulnerability against his poised composure struck a deep chord within Emma. Here she was, armed with nothing more than a hopeful heart and a trembling desire to belong, while he seemed like a figure carved from the very essence of the city itself. His dark eyes briefly met hers in the reflection of a polished surface, and in that split second, a silent, unspoken connection flickered, a question without words, a promise of more that lingered in the air. As she took a tentative sip of her champagne, the cool liquid serving as a gentle reminder of her own resilience, Emma felt the weight of that moment settle over her. The mingled fragrance of expensive perfume and fresh-cut floral arrangements, the shimmering reflections of city lights on the modern decor, and the soft echoes of conversations all created an immersive tapestry that both enthralled and daunted her. There was a tantalizing hint that this night, this very encounter, might be the catalyst for a journey that would unravel secrets, challenge her self-doubt, and ultimately redefine who she was meant to be. Every sense was alive in that moment. The sparkle of the windows, the rich timbre of distant voices, the subtle interplay of shadows and light. All of it conspired to elevate the scene into something almost magical. And while Emma's heart raced in tandem with the pulse of the party, she could sense that destiny was making its quiet, deliberate approach. With her mind teetering between longing and fear, she realized that the night was just beginning, and that sometimes the most profound transformations start with a single, unexpected glance. In that instant, amidst the glittering splendor of the loft and the intoxicating mix of refinement and raw emotion, Emma resolved to let the night lead her into the unknown. She would seize this chance to step out of her comfort zone, to explore the vast, luminous possibilities that awaited, and perhaps even discover that the sense of belonging she so desperately craved was closer than she imagined. And in the silence that followed the subtle spark of attraction, the promise of an unfolding mystery shimmered, inviting her to take the next bold step into a world where every moment was a revelation waiting to happen. Chapter 1. The Spark, the First Encounter with Alex. In the midst of the lively ambiance of the loft, with high society chatter intermingling seamlessly with the soft strains of music, Emma's attention was drawn to a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Across the room, as if emerging from the shadows of the soiree, stood a figure whose presence seemed to set the very air around him alight. Alex was leaning casually against a modern minimalist bar, the tailored lines of his suit accentuating every confident contour of his frame. The suit, a deep, inky blue that exuded timeless sophistication, clung to him impeccably, each seam and fold attesting to a quiet, unspoken power. As Emma took a hesitant step forward, her eyes met his in an electrifying moment of mutual recognition. His gaze was deliberate and calm, imbued with an air of importance that spoke volumes without a single word. In that instant, the bustling party faded into a soft murmur, and an almost imperceptible silence enveloped the space between them. It was as if time had suspended itself to capture the magnetic tension of that first glance, an exchange where glances did the talking. For Emma, her heart began to race, each beat echoing like a whispered secret of vulnerability and hope. She felt exposed, as if his eyes could see through the carefully constructed facade she had donned all evening, peeling back layers of self-doubt to reveal the raw, true essence beneath. There was something undeniably powerful in his silent invitation. A subtle challenge, perhaps, or a promise of connection that transcended the superficial glow of the party lights. "Hi, I'm Alex," he said, his voice smooth and measured, cutting through the ambient noise with an effortless charm that immediately set him apart. His introduction was neither overly formal nor casual. It was perfectly poised, like the opening note of a well-rehearsed symphony. There was an innate rhythm in his speech that made every word feel like it had been carefully chosen, each syllable resonating with a quiet assurance. Emma responded with a soft smile, her voice barely rising above the delicate hum of the background music. "I'm Emma," she murmured, her tone infused with a mix of shyness and genuine curiosity. In that brief exchange of names, a flicker of flirtation sparked between them, an unspoken promise of more to come. It was a moment suspended in time, where every glance and every slight gesture carried the weight of possibility. Alex's eyes, dark and introspective, flickered with a hint of amusement, as if he recognized in Emma the same desire to break free from an ordinary life. His gaze lingered on her with an intensity that made her feel simultaneously seen and understood. "You look as if you're not entirely comfortable in this environment," he observed gently, an eyebrow raised in playful inquiry. His tone was both teasing and reassuring, a delicate balance that invited her to open up while guarding her vulnerabilities. For a moment, Emma's internal storm of uncertainty paused, replaced by an unexpected warmth that flowed from his words. "I guess I'm still getting used to the glitter and glitz," she replied with a hint of self-deprecating humor, her eyes twinkling with both laughter and a trace of lingering apprehension. It was a candid admission, a raw note struck in his ear, midst of a carefully orchestrated evening, and it resonated deeply with the quiet truth of her inner world. Their conversation unfolded like a gentle dance, a series of measured steps where each word and every glance built upon the last. Alex moved closer, his presence reassuring, yet charged with a mysterious allure that defied casual explanation. "New York has a way of making us question who we are," he said, his tone thoughtful, hinting at a shared understanding of the city's relentless pace and the dreams it inspires. "But sometimes, it also helps us find who we're really meant to be." Emma's pulse quickened at his words, as if each beat were affirming his sentiment. She felt as though his gaze was not just seeing her, but truly reading her story. The silent chapters of hope, fear, and determination etched in every line of her expression. "I feel that," she admitted, her voice a mixture of wonder and trepidation. "It's like every reflective surface in this city is telling me a story, and I'm still trying to find my place in it." Their exchange became a quiet interplay of intellect and emotion, a subtle flirtation of ideas that danced around the edges of something deeper. Alex's calm confidence seemed to bridge the gap between their contrasting worlds, his air of practiced sophistication against her raw, emerging authenticity. There was an undercurrent of tension that neither could ignore, a delicate mutual recognition of the untold potential that lay hidden just beneath the surface. Even as the party's vibrant energy continued to swirl around them, that space between Emma and Alex felt insulated, as if time had given them a private moment within a crowded room. Every gesture, every smile exchanged, further softened the boundaries of initial reserve. The subtle power dynamics between them, her tentative vulnerability meeting his assured yet empathetic poise, created an atmosphere rife with the promise of a deeper, more resonant connection. In that fleeting, charged moment, as the night pulsed, around them, Emma couldn't help but wonder if fate had a hand in orchestrating this encounter. Was it possible that beneath the layers of ambition and self-doubt, a single glance from a stranger could ignite a spark of transformation? With her heart beating like a drum, and his eyes holding a story of their own, the night had shifted into a realm of possibilities. One where each whispered word, every stolen glance, set the stage for a journey that promised to be as unpredictable as it was compelling. And so, as the glitter of the Manhattan skyline continued to beckon through the glass walls of the loft, Emma and Alex's initial encounter laid the first stepping stone toward a connection that neither could yet fully comprehend. A magnetism born of genuine intrigue and the silent, unspoken promise of what might come next. Chapter 1. The Spark. Conversation and Instant Connection. As the subtle glow of the loft's ambient lighting embraced them, Alex smoothly shifted from his earlier reserved demeanor into an effortless initiator of conversation. He took a cautious step forward, his eyes still locked with Emma's, and broke the silence with an almost carefree remark. "You know, there's something magnetic about tonight, like the city itself is urging us to take a leap into the unknown." His words carried a hint of playful mystery, drawing Emma in even closer. Emma's heart quickened in response as she processed his observation. In her mind, a swirl of raw vulnerability mingled with defiant humor. Here I am, a newcomer in this dazzling realm, trying to prove I belong, and already there's this guy who speaks as if he's been dancing with destiny all along. With a small, wry smile, she replied, "I suppose New York does have a way of making the unexpected feel almost like fate. It's like every night here promises a new beginning, and a few surprises along the way." Their conversation unfolded naturally, each sentence gently bridging the gap between casual banter and something more meaningful. Alex's eyes, warm yet penetrating, searched hers as he continued. "Spontaneity is what makes life interesting, don't you think? The thrill of making an unplanned choice, stepping into a moment without knowing exactly what comes next." His tone trailed off, leaving the thought suspended in the charged air between them. Emma's inner monologue came alive at that moment. "It's as if he's reading the script of my hidden desires, the ones I usually keep locked away behind a mask of caution." She felt a swell of honesty rising in her chest, a spark of hope that urged her to bare a piece of her soul. "I think," she began carefully, "that sometimes it takes a risk, a wild, unpredictable moment to remind us that we're alive, that even in a sea of polished faces, there's room for someone to stand out if they dare be themselves." Their dialogue danced like a gentle symphony. Alex's laughter, soft and genuine, mingled with the ambient sounds of the party, creating an intimate rhythm almost unique to their conversation. "Absolutely," he agreed, his smile widening with a mix of amusement and admiration. "It's those moments when you feel a little exposed, a little vulnerable, that you realize the beauty of connecting with someone who sees you for who you truly are." His words resonated deeply with Emma as she clutched her champagne glass, savoring the mix of courage and tenderness in his tone. She couldn't help but think, this is exactly what I need. A spark that cuts through all the pretentiousness and makes me feel seen. In response, she quipped lightly, "I guess it takes a certain kind of bravery to not run away when you're suddenly at the center of someone's world." Her voice held a playful note that belied the underlying tremor of her insecurities. There was a defiant joy in her tone, a bold, unfiltered truth that she was ready to reclaim her identity, even if it scared her a bit. Alex's gaze lingered, on her, a silent acknowledgement of the risk inherent in honesty. "Maybe," he said slowly, "that's precisely why moments like these are so precious. When two people allow themselves to be vulnerable, even for a fleeting second, they create a space where something real can flourish. It's spontaneous. It's raw. It's electric. His choice of words, simple yet profound, seemed to etch a promise of possibilities into the air between them. As the conversation deepened, so did the intimacy of their connection. The gentle hum of high society faded into the background, replaced by the cadence of their personal narrative, a tale woven from shared glances, honest confessions, and the tender echo of hearts daring to open up. Emma felt as though she were standing on the edge of a precipice, a place where the familiar safety of guarded existence was giving way to the exhilarating, sometimes frightening world of genuine connection. This is it, she realized. It's time to let my true self shine, no matter how imperfect or exposed it might seem. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of wonder and determination as she said, "You make it sound like every spontaneous moment is a doorway. Perhaps tonight, that door might just lead to a place where I'm not afraid to be seen." The sincerity in her voice was palpable, stirring an unspoken understanding in Alex's smile. "I believe it already has," he murmured, his tone softening with an uncharacteristic tenderness that hinted at something deeper waiting to be discovered as the night unfolded. Their exchange was more than mere conversation. It was the gentle weaving of two distinct lives into a shared tapestry of possibility. Between the laughter and the thoughtful pauses, there was the undeniable promise of more than just a fleeting encounter. It was as if the night itself had conspired to bring them together, each word a stepping stone toward the realization that their journey together was only beginning. As the moments passed, the energy around them maintained the delicate balance of high society allure and raw personal truth. Every laugh they shared, every knowing glance exchanged, nudged them closer to a connection that defied the superficial trappings of the party. In that sacred space, where vulnerability met the thrill of possibility, Emma felt the first stirrings of hope transform into the promise of something more profound, a connection that could perhaps illuminate the uncertain paths of both their lives. In the midst of the glamour and the soft jazz, the intimate buzz of their conversation resounded like a secret whispered by destiny. It was an invitation to embrace the night, to lean into the unexpected, and to let the spontaneous magic of New York guide them towards a future that was as unpredictable as it was irresistible. Chapter 2. The Heat. Transition to Passion and a Defining Kiss. As the night advanced, the atmosphere around Emma and Alex shifted from a playful banter to a charged intimacy that seemed to vibrate in the very air between them. The party's ambient hum faded into a distant murmur as their conversation naturally deepened, drawing them closer until the space around them shrank to an intimate bubble of shared secrets and quiet confessions. Alex's gaze, once casually inquisitive, grew steadily more intense. It was as if he could see right through the layers of hesitation that Emma had so carefully constructed. Their hands grazed subtly, one fleeting brush against her arm that sent a shiver cascading through her, a tender reminder that the boundaries she had long guarded were beginning to crumble. With every lingering look, every soft smile exchanged, a powerful, unspoken understanding was forming, a magnetic pull that neither could resist. "You know," Alex murmured, his voice low and resonant, "there's a kind of beauty in letting go, even if it means exposing what you hold dear." His words, softly spoken and laden with hidden meaning, resonated in Emma's chest. She felt as though he was not merely commenting on the moment, but inviting her to shed the guise of self-protection and embrace the raw, unfettered emotions bubbling within her. For a brief moment, Emma's internal defenses wavered, and she allowed herself to be swept away by the spontaneity of this encounter. Maybe it's time to stop holding back, she thought, her pulse quickening with the promise of risk and reward. The cool touch of his hand as it lightly brushed her skin sent sparks of both desire and comfort racing through her nerves, making her acutely aware of the fragile, beautiful vulnerability hidden beneath her composed exterior. Alex's eyes never left hers, conveying a quiet confidence that both reassured and challenged her. "I've always believed that the most meaningful, Connections spark from moments when we dare to be entirely ourselves, he continued, his tone gentle yet filled with an undeniable intensity. His words, spoken in a measured cadence, kindled something inside her, a yearning to truly connect, to embrace the moment without fear of judgment. In that suspended second, the lively chatter around them seemed to dim, leaving only the soft, rhythmic beating of their hearts to fill the silence. Emma's fingers tightened around the rim of her champagne glass, the cool condensation a sharp contrast to the warmth building between them. Every subtle shift, a tilt of his head, the way his hand lingered near hers, and the spark in his eyes, wove an irresistible tapestry of desire and possibility. "Emma," he said softly, her name hanging delicately in the air like a secret. "What if we let this night be the beginning of something that neither of us expected?" His voice was a whisper of vulnerability mingled with raw determination, and it nudged her to question the familiar refrain of self-doubt that had long held her back. The raw desire in his tone was unmistakable, a promise that tonight could shatter old confines and open a door to uncharted realms of passion. Before she could fully articulate her response, the magnetic pull between them intensified. In one breathless moment, Alex stepped closer, his presence enveloping her in a cocoon of warmth and intensity. Their eyes locked in a silent conversation, each glance a word, each subtle gesture a sentence in the narrative of their untold story. The world around them blurred, glittering lights, distant laughter, the soft murmur of the party, all fading into the background as the focus narrowed to just the two of them, standing at the precipice of a profound, transformative connection. Then came the delicate moment when everything shifted. As if following its own unspoken choreography, Alex's hand reached out, his fingertips barely grazing the sensitive skin of her cheek. Emma's breath hitched as that delicate touch reverberated through her, a silent promise of what could unfold. The contact was both electrifying and tender, an intimacy that defied the crowded glitz of the party. In that heartbeat, the chaos of New York, the weight of her guarded past, all seemed to dissolve. Their conversation, now reduced to the unspoken, language of glances and gentle touches, built toward an inevitable climax. The air around them thickened with anticipation, each second stretching into an eternity of possibility. Without a word, Alex leaned in, his gaze inviting and resolute. Emma closed her eyes as his lips descended, a soft, exploratory touch that began as a whisper against her skin. At first, the kiss was gentle, almost hesitant, as if both were testing the delicate waters of their newfound connection. Yet, as the moment deepened, so too did the kiss transform, growing in intensity, breaking free of all reservations. In that defining instant, Emma felt the last remnants of her carefully constructed barriers crumble away. Every doubt, every fear that had once imprisoned her heart, melted into the passion of that electrifying kiss. His lips, warm and insistent, were a promise, a declaration that vulnerability could be a source of profound strength. The kiss was a seamless blend of tenderness and raw desire, a moment so charged with emotion that it left both of them suspended in a world of its own making. As they pulled slightly apart, time itself seemed to falter, a silent cliffhanger that left the promise of more lingering like an unspoken vow. Emma's eyes fluttered open, meeting the depth of Alex's gaze with a mingling of wonder and anticipation. For a brief, shimmering moment, the future stretched before them, cloaked in mystery and the exhilarating promise of transformation. And as the soft echoes of their shared heartbeat filled the pause, the night held its breath, leaving both to wonder just how profoundly this single defining kiss would change the course of their intertwined destinies. Chapter 2. The Heat. Aftermath and Awakening. The morning light crept softly through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, painting delicate patterns on the polished floors. Emma awoke with her heart still echoing the rhythm of last night's passion, her mind teetering between the hazy fragments of a dream and the unmistakable pulse of reality. In the quiet aftermath, every subtle sound seemed amplified. The distant murmur of the city waking up, the soft hum of luxury air conditioning, and the gentle cooing of a world that had briefly slipped away into intimacy. Lying in the sumptuous, rumpled sheets, Emma's eyes fluttered open as she tried to piece together the vivid memories of that transformative night. The sensation was surreal. The mingling of lingering kisses and the tender warmth of a hand, the soft taste of champagne that still clung to her lips, and the depth of emotion that now shimmered beneath her usual guarded reserve. In that hushed moment, as the penthouse's opulent decor embraced her like a silent confidant, she felt both naked and empowered, a paradox that set her pulse racing with new possibilities. Every detail of the penthouse bore the signature of lavish elegance. The sprawling windows offered a panorama of Manhattan's glittering skyline, each light a tiny beacon echoing countless stories of ambition and aspiration. Gleaming marble surfaces, sleek modern furnishings, and artfully curated accents created an environment of refined sophistication. Yet, amidst all this grandeur, Emma's thoughts were grounded in a simple, raw truth. She had entered a realm that mirrored her own turbulent mix of vulnerability and newfound strength. Sitting up slowly, Emma traced a finger along the cool surface of the bedside table, as if attempting to capture the essence of the night that had redefined her. The memories came in waves. The electric exchange of glances, a brush of his hand that sent shivers cascading through her, and the unstoppable pull of a kiss that had shattered her self-imposed barriers. In that passionate embrace, she had felt an awakening, a stirring within that dared to challenge the narratives of the past and herald a future uncharted but full of promise. She reflected on how that intimate interlude had altered her self-perception. Last night, she had shed the heavy cloak of doubt and hesitation to reveal a facet of herself that was both genuine and bold. For years, the weight of expectations had confined her, whispering that her origins were too humble for the dazzling heights of New York. But now, in the soft afterglow of an unforgettable kiss, she sensed the emergence of a woman ready to rewrite her own story. The vulnerability she experienced was not a weakness. Rather, it was the doorway to an internal strength she hadn't fully recognized until this very moment. As Emma sat there, the contrasting sensations of luxury and simplicity mingled within her. The sumptuous linens and elegant furnishings of the penthouse served as a backdrop to the fierce inner transformation taking place. With each silent breath, she began to understand that passion could be both a sanctuary and a catalyst, a force that nurtured her spirit, even as it ignited ambitions she once thought unattainable. The memory of Alex's whispered encouragement mingled with her own hopes, carving a new space within her heart for both love and self-discovery. Yet amid the gentle introspection, subtle hints of the challenges ahead lurked in the corners of her mind. Balancing the wild, passionate impulses that had swept her away with the pragmatic demands of life in a bustling metropolis felt daunting. The penthouse, despite its breathtaking beauty, was a reminder that even the most transcendent moments carried echoes of real-world responsibility, a reality where ambition and romance must coexist, often in tension with one another. Rising from the bed, Emma drew a long, steadying breath. The kiss had been more than a moment of passion. It had marked the beginning of a journey into uncharted emotional territory. She could already sense that the intensity of last night's encounter was both a gift and a harbinger of forthcoming trials. How would she navigate the delicate balance between nurturing a burgeoning romance and the fierce drive to assert her own ambitions? The thought was as exhilarating as it was intimidating, but she felt an undeniable call to embrace it. In the quiet of the penthouse, with the Manhattan skyline shimmering like an endless tapestry of dreams, Emma resolved to carry the flame of that passion into the challenges of the day. The morning was a blank page waiting to be written, a canvas on which the intertwined stories of love, aspiration, and the ever-persistent quest for self-realization would be sketched. With the memory of that defining kiss still warming her, she stepped toward the day with a cautious optimism, aware that the path ahead would be as complex and unpredictable as the city itself. And so, as the new day dawned in a world of glittering, promise and lingering echoes of intimacy, Emma embraced the delicate dance of vulnerability and strength. The passion that had momentarily shattered her defenses had now ignited a spark of determination, one that would guide her through the labyrinth of romance and ambition in the vibrant heart of New York. The journey was just beginning, and every beat of her renewed heart whispered of possibilities waiting to be discovered, both in the realm of love and in the depths of her own untamed spirit. Chapter 2. The heat, the morning and the workday, divide. The gentle glow of dawn filtered through the expansive windows of New York, transforming the remnants of the passionate night into a crisp, clear beginning. As Emma slowly awoke, the silken sheets of the penthouse no longer whispered of an intimate haze, but seemed to promise the challenges and opportunities of a new day. Outside, the city stirred, a pulsating rhythm of ambition and relentless energy that reminded her of both the allure and the demands that awaited her. With a soft sigh and a lingering recollection of the previous night's magic, Emma rose and allowed herself a few quiet moments to savor the dawn. The penthouse, still draped in the luxury of its sleek decor, now took on a different character. No longer merely a sanctuary of fleeting passion, it had become a transition zone between the tender vulnerability of love and the uncompromising reality of ambition. Amid the soft hum of the metropolitan morning, distant sirens, the echo of early commuters, and the rhythmic clatter of urban life, Emma felt both the weight and the promise of the day ahead. She moved to the grand balcony, where the sprawling panorama of Manhattan unfurled before her like a living map of dreams and decisions. The sunrise painted the skyline with hues of gold and amber, casting long shadows that danced over the polished surfaces of towering skyscrapers. In that quiet, reflective moment, Emma's thoughts turned to her new role at Reed International, IA, challenge laden with potential and pressure in equal measure. Her mind was a turbulent mix of excitement and trepidation as she braced herself for the duality that defined her life. The memory of last night's intimacy was vivid, pulsating like a heartbeat against the backdrop of the city's dynamic cadence. While the kiss with Alex had shattered the confines of her guarded reserve, it had also unveiled the complexities of juggling passion with professionalism. In the tender afterglow, her heart had throbbed with a fierce, unspoken promise. Yet now, as the morning light stepped in to reclaim the space, the reality of career and responsibility began to resurface. Back inside, Emma's delicate fingers smoothed out the wrinkles from a night of uncertain triumph, and a resolute determination took root. It was time to transition from the softness of the penthouse's intimate ambiance into the pragmatic pulse of the workday. With a steadying breath, she prepared herself for a day where her personal desires and professional ambitions would meet, perhaps even clash. The lingering ache of last night mingled with the crisp energy of the morning, crafting a bittersweet tapestry of emotion that was as complex as the city itself. Dressed in a carefully chosen ensemble that balanced elegance with practicality, Emma moved with deliberate intent toward the door. Outside, the brisk New York morning was in full swing. The city exuded an unmistakable vibrancy, the hum of traffic, the spirited chatter of early risers, and the promise of a day brimming with possibility. Each step toward her destination felt like a measured plunge into a world where every moment was charged with both excitement and expectation. At Reed International, she was to assume her new role in a landscape defined by sharp suits, innovative creativity, and high-stakes decisions. As she navigated the bustling streets, Emma's thoughts were a mix of anticipation and self-reflection. Can I truly merge the passion of last night with the focus required for success? The question lingered like a silent challenge, urging her to find balance amid the internal turbulence. The vibrant energy of the city outside, with its relentless drive and ceaseless momentum, only added to the pressure. A constant reminder that in New York, every minute held the promise of brilliance or the risk of being left behind. Arriving. At the sleek, glass-walled office building, Emma took a moment to steady her racing heart. The entrance was a portal to the world of corporate ambition, a stark contrast to the intimate setting of the penthouse. Here, the environment was clinical, yet charged with the dynamic force of a forward-thinking enterprise. The corridors buzzed, with the low murmur of conversations about quarterly goals and cutting-edge projects, a language that Emma was eager, yet cautious, to master. Inside her workspace, among polished desks and the soft glow of strategically placed lighting, Emma could almost feel the dichotomy of her life. On one hand, there was the memory of a tender, transformative night, where every touch and whispered secret had coaxed her out of the shadows of self-doubt. On the other, the rigid demands of professionalism and ambition loomed large. A realm where every decision was scrutinized, and vulnerability was both a risk and a potential strength. As she settled into her new role, Emma resolved to harness the energy of both worlds. The memory of Alex's encouraging words, the soft pressure of his hand, and the electric kiss would be her secret wellspring, a reminder that even in the midst of corporate challenges, there was a part of her that burned with unstoppable passion. However, the internal conflict was undeniable. She felt the pull of personal desire tugging at the edges of her focus, hinting at the inevitable clash between the unbridled intensity of romance and the rigid expectations of her career. The crisp, morning light, filtering through the office windows, shone on her determined face, a portrait of resilience and quiet defiance. Emma knew that every day in New York would demand that she balance her longing for connection with the relentless drive to succeed. And even as she immersed herself in the tasks of the day, analyzing briefs, sketching creative concepts, and attending meetings, she kept the memories of that transformative night close to her heart. They served as a vivid counterpoint to the structured rhythms of corporate life, a soft yet persistent reminder that she was more than a set of job responsibilities. She was a woman capable of profound passion and extraordinary dreams. In the midst of deadlines and strategic planning sessions, Emma's internal dialogue continued, urging her to trust in the fire that had been kindled under the canopy of a starry New York night. The morning and workday divide was more than a contrast. It was a crucible in which she would forge the delicate balance between love and ambition. And as she set her sights on the promising horizon of her new career, that internal flame burned steadily, lighting the way forward even in the face of inevitable challenges. Chapter 2. The Heat. Entering the corporate world, stepping through the sleek glass doors of Reed International, Emma was immediately swallowed by a whirlwind of creative energy and corporate ambition. The design floor buzzed with vibrant activity, a realm of dynamic chaos where ideas flew as freely as the sound of clicking keyboards and constant low conversations about groundbreaking projects. In this high-energy environment, every detail spoke of possibility. Mood boards plastered with avant-garde designs, fabric swatches scattered like colorful confetti, and workstations crowded with sketches and prototypes that testified to endless innovation. As Emma moved deeper into the office, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the subtle tang of printed paper, creating a sensory tapestry that was both invigorating and intimidating. The polished surfaces of modern work tables reflected the determined faces of colleagues, each absorbed in their tasks, as if they were artists in their own right, painting visions of the future. Amid this creative frenzy, Emma felt the familiar tug of her inner turmoil, an unyielding conflict between the passion she still carried from that transformative night and the weighty expectations of a competitive corporate world. The atmosphere was alive with the murmurs of collaboration and quiet bursts of laughter punctuating the focused energy. Emma's eyes darted around, taking in every detail. A cluster of designers huddled around an oversized mood board, debating color palettes and textures. Colleagues exchanged high fives near a whiteboard strewn with brainstorming sketches, and the sharp, rhythmic tapping of keyboards created a background beat that seemed to drive the pulse of the entire floor. For a moment, she marveled at the creative chaos, its vibrancy making her feel both inspired and small at the same time. In this sea of ambition, Emma couldn't help but notice the subtle dynamics at play. Among the focused team was Amelia, whose cool, almost imperious demeanor set her apart. Amelia moved with confident precision, her eyes scanning every detail as if she held the blueprint for success within her gaze. Without uttering a word, her presence communicated a clear message. In this high-stakes world, there was little room for uncertainty or vulnerability. The quiet power she exuded reminded Emma of the very challenges she now faced, balancing her genuine creative spirit with the unyielding demands of professionalism. As Emma navigated through the busy corridors, the soft murmur of discreet gossip began to ripple through the air. In hushed tones, conversations hinted at the fierce competition among the established professionals. Whispers of who was truly capable and who might just be an imposter in this dazzling, unpredictable world of design. This undercurrent of scrutiny, though barely audible amid the day's vigorous buzz, pulsed in Emma's ear like a persistent reminder that her place here was still uncertain. She felt a pang of anxiety as she recalled her own doubts. Each step further into this modern coliseum of ideas was a step deeper into a trial by fire, where every creative decision could define her future. Yet, despite the internal conflict, Emma's resolve did not waver. Every element of the bustling office, from the creative chaos of scattered sketches and vibrant mood boards to the cool professionalism radiating from experienced colleagues, served as both inspiration and a challenge. She was here to prove that her unique vision could not only survive, but thrive amid the relentless pace of a competitive corporate design floor. The scent of fresh coffee, mingled with the palpable buzz of collaboration, nourished her determination and infused her with a cautious optimism. In a quiet corner of the open workspace, Emma found a momentary refuge to observe her surroundings. A microcosm of ambition and creativity that was as beautiful as it was intimidating. She watched with attentive eyes as ideas were shaped on the fly, as teams transformed raw concepts into polished prototypes. It was in these brief, reflective pauses that she recognized the duality of her existence in New York. The lingering passion of her personal journey clashed with the disciplined rigor of professional expectations, creating a dynamic interplay of vulnerability and strength. Determined to embrace both sides of her identity, Emma took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. She knew that every moment in this environment would force her to confront not only the demands of Reed International, but also her own inner battles. Each design brief, each challenge presented by her colleagues, was an opportunity, a stepping stone toward integrating the fervor of her creative spirit with the practicality required to succeed here. As she returned to her desk, Emma set about organizing her thoughts and sketching out her ideas for a new project. The simple act of drawing became a dialogue between her own hopes and the collective ambition of the team around her. With every pencil stroke, she felt the legacy of last night's transformative passion merge with the pragmatic drive of the corporate world. It was a delicate balance, a dance between vulnerability and resilience that she had yet to master, but one she was determined to learn. In that moment, as the day unfolded amidst a symphony of vibrant visuals and innovative energy, Emma resolved to channel both the fire of her personal experiences and the rigorous demands of her professional life. The buzzing workstations, the flicker of creative sparks around her, and the discerning eyes of her colleagues all became part of a larger narrative, a story of transformation that was just beginning to reveal itself. And as she immersed herself in the challenges of the day, the quiet whispers of office politics and the stirrings of internal conflict blended into a compelling background, urging her to rise, adapt, and ultimately become the person she was destined to be in the heart of New York's relentless creative pulse. Chapter 2. The heat, the CEO's entrance and first impression. The energy on the design floor, already buzzing with creative fervor, suddenly paused as the polished, formidable presence of CEO Alexander Reed made his entrance. The door opened with a quiet yet deliberate elegance, drawing every eye toward the arriving figure. As if choreographed for the occasion, Alex stepped into the room with an aura of calm confidence and understated charisma that instantly transformed the atmosphere. His tailored suit, a masterpiece of modern design, fit him as if custom-made, for his commanding presence, its deep charcoal hue reflecting both authority and mystery. Each measured step he took resonated with power, and the subtle gleam of his cufflinks hinted at a meticulous attention to detail that left no doubt. This was a man who set the standard. For Emma, whose heart had been quietly humming with the aftershocks of personal transformation, the revelation that the enigmatic man from the party was now her CEO was overwhelming. In that precise moment, she felt a turbulent mix of awe, attraction, and trepidation. Her breath caught as she recognized not only the physical allure, the sculpted jawline, the steady, penetrating gaze, but also the magnetic energy emanating from him, as if he carried within him a reservoir of untold stories and ambitions. The realization sent her pulse racing, and she could scarcely believe that this very man now stood at the helm of the company, where she had just begun her new role. As Alex moved gracefully through the room, his presence elicited a ripple of murmurs from the assembled staff. Colleagues, engrossed in their tasks moments before, instinctively paused to observe the man whose mere arrival seemed to command respect and attention. His eyes swept across the room with a calculated kindness, noticing details with a precision that belied his imposing stature. The sound of hushed conversations and inquisitive whispers filled the air, yet even amid this quiet commotion, there was an unmistakable undercurrent of expectation, a collective sense that today, under his guidance, matters would be handled with a blend of innovation and decisiveness. Approaching a central area of the open workspace, Alex paused for a moment. His gaze caught Emma's, and it was as though time itself hesitated to continue its relentless march. In that split second, the vibrant hum of office chatter and the soft clatter of keyboards dimmed into an almost cinematic silence. Emma's mind swirled, her internal dialogue racing, a cocktail of admiration and anxiety. This is him, the man who enchanted me last night, who now commands this entire enterprise. What does it mean for me? Her thoughts flickered between the surreal and the intensely real, as she recognized that the allure of personal passion was now intertwined with the stark realities of professional hierarchy. With a practiced ease that belied the weight of his responsibilities, Alex addressed the room. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice deep and measured, carrying an unmistakable blend of warmth and authority. His introduction was succinct yet impactful, each syllable deliberately chosen to both inspire and set the day's agenda. "I'm excited about the direction we're heading. Today we push boundaries, we innovate, and above all, we commit to excellence." His words, resonant and clear, ignited a subtle spark in every corner of the space, a spark that seemed to invite not only compliance but also creative ambition. As he spoke, Emma felt a tug at her core, a sense that her own aspirations and vulnerabilities were now subject to a new kind of scrutiny. The man who had so mesmerized her during the fleeting moments of passion was now the person whose expectations would define her professional journey. The delicate interplay of admiration and insecurity churned within her. Every time his eyes met hers, she wondered if he too sensed something extraordinary beneath her composed exterior. Each pause in his speech, every inflection that softened his otherwise commanding tone, seemed to whisper possibilities of connection far beyond the boundaries of a routine corporate role. Around them, the dynamics of the office shifted as staff. Members exchanged glances that held both respect and curiosity. There was an underlying acknowledgement that Alex's leadership was not merely about driving business outcomes. It was about fostering an environment where creativity and ambition could coexist with vulnerability and genuine connection. Emma watched as a few colleagues nodded appreciatively, while others, their faces a mixture of awe and skepticism, looked on. Amid these varied reactions, she felt the dual pressure of wanting to belong and the fear of being judged, her internal struggle deepening with every word he spoke. For a moment, Alex's attention flitted towards the strategic displays of design work, a collection of mood boards and prototype sketches on a large illuminated screen. "These designs," he remarked, his tone mixing analytical insight with a rare touch of encouragement, are not only a testament to our collective skill, but also a canvas for what we can achieve when we dare to dream big. His praise was delivered with a sincerity that resonated deeply with Emma, evoking a dormant part of her soul that longed to be recognized for more than just her potential. As Alex concluded his address and moved on to engage with different teams, Emma remained, standing, her eyes lingering on his retreating figure. The intensity of his presence left an indelible mark on her, a delicate echo of both the night's allure and the stark reality of the corporate arena. In that charged moment, the seamless blend of his polished sophistication and empathetic leadership kindled in her a fierce determination to rise to the challenge, both as a creative and as a professional. Yet, beneath that determination, simmered a personal uncertainty. Could she navigate the intricate interplay between passion and duty, authenticity and ambition, in a world as unforgiving as it was breathtaking? The early moments of the day had been irrevocably altered by the arrival of a man who embodied the essence of power and possibility, a man who now held not only the reins of the company, but in a quiet, transformative way, a piece of Emma's heart. And as she steadied herself to face the demands of the day, the mingling of awe, attraction, and trepidation forged a new sense of purpose within her, a sense that every challenge was also an opportunity for growth, a chance to step beyond the confines of yesterday and boldly embrace the future. Chapter 2. The Heat. Navigating Office, Politics, and Inner Doubts. As the day progressed, the initial burst of inspiration and newfound confidence slowly gave way to the subtler, more insidious currents of office politics. Emma soon discovered that the polished veneer of Reed International's creative world concealed a labyrinth of expectations, whispered judgments, and unsaid comparisons. Even as she focused on her work, a blend of innovative design concepts and strategic brainstorming, an undercurrent of self-doubt began to ripple through her thoughts. Walking down the corridor between open workstations, Emma couldn't help but notice the furtive glances exchanged among colleagues. A subtle tilt of a head here, a hushed conversation there. A network of quiet speculations was forming around her. It wasn't long before she realized that her every move was being silently evaluated. The weight of these unspoken opinions pressed down on her like an invisible force, urging her to prove that her presence was not an accident, but a well-deserved addition to the team. Inside her mind, a storm was quietly gathering. "I'm here because I'm talented," she reminded herself. But the inner voice of insecurity countered, "What if they think I don't belong? What if every successful project is just a stroke of luck, and I'm just a shadow behind it all?" The burden of expectations, both her own and those of the seasoned professionals around her, became a relentless echo in her thoughts. Every missed glance or whispered remark served as a reminder of the unyielding scrutiny she had unwittingly entered. As she settled at her workstation, Emma arranged her files and sketches in a methodical fashion, each document a piece of her creative soul. Yet even as her hands worked with practiced precision, her mind revisited the earlier moments of quiet admiration mixed with piercing skepticism that lingered like a static charge in the air. A senior designer, with a discerning gaze, had once paused by her station and offered a polite nod before resuming a hushed conversation with a colleague. Such micro-interactions, seemingly trivial to an outsider, felt for her like subtle examinations, questions her heart struggled to answer with confident clarity. The office buzzed with an incessant energy, a complex symphony of keystrokes, low murmurings, and the occasional burst of laughter. Yet, beneath this vibrant surface, Emma could sense the underlying tension. Rumors had begun to swirl, wordlessly carried on the lips of those who had been here longer. There was an air of us versus them among the established professionals, a silent power play that set the unspoken rules of engagement. As she observed, a particularly cool and confident colleague, Amelia, drifted past with an icy detachment. The way Amelia's eyes briefly lingered on Emma, coupled with the subtle curl of her lips, sent a chill of apprehension through her. Although the gesture was fleeting, it spoke volumes about the competitive environment that awaited her at every corner. For Emma, these moments stoked a turbulent mix of determination and vulnerability. Her internal monologue became both her armor and her tormentor. Every day, I have to prove I'm more than just the new face. I have to prove I'm deserving of my dreams. But what if my ideas aren't enough? What if I'm just mimicking the success of those who came before me? With each silent doubt, she resolved anew that her journey was not meant to be defined by the opinions of others, no matter how quietly they were whispered. A particularly charged moment arrived during a team meeting when a high-ranking executive casually mentioned a recent design success. And in that instant, Emma sensed the eyes of several colleagues turning towards her workstation, as if silently demanding proof of her own worth. The room, already hushed in anticipation, seemed to pulse with the collective expectation. For a heartbeat, Emma felt utterly exposed, as if every internal secret was laid bare under the critical gaze of the group. Then, drawing on the memory of her transformative night and the passionate connection that had awakened her spirit, she steadied herself. In that moment, she made a silent vow to let these quiet battles fuel her creativity rather than shatter her resolve. That fleeting surge of determination was a turning point, a pivot that reminded Emma that while the office politics and whispered doubts might try to anchor her to a place of self-limitation, she was the master of her own narrative. The challenge was no longer just to fit in, but to rise above the subtle criticisms and prove her unique vision. Every anxious thought was countered by a spark of creativity. Every moment of introspection became a catalyst for redefining her own worth. As the meeting ended and the room gradually returned to its rhythmic hum, Emma looked around at her colleagues, some with expressions of guarded admiration, others with the cool detachment of those who had long mastered the game. Amid this sea of subtly imposed expectations, she realized that her journey was just beginning. The internal conflict stirred by the day's whispered critiques was not a sign of weakness, but a signal that she was truly on the path of growth, a path where every challenge in office politics would eventually translate into a deeper understanding of herself and a more powerful expression of her talents. With renewed resolve, Emma returned to her workspace, every whispered word and furtive glance now transforming into stepping stones toward a future defined by both passion and resilience. The ticking of the clock, the hum of creativity around her, and the silent pressure of office politics coalesced into a single clear message. Here, in the heart of New York's relentless corporate world, she was determined to find a way to shine, no matter the cost. Chapter 3. The Conflict. Rising Tensions with Amelia. Just as Emma began to find her footing amid the creative chaos and corporate rigor at Reed International, a new storm started gathering on the horizon, one that bore the unmistakable chill of calculated ambition. Amelia, with her icy demeanor and razor-sharp tongue, made her presence known in a way that left no doubt. She was not merely a bystander in this unfolding drama, but a force determined to assert her authority. It began with a seemingly routine interaction in the shared workspace, as Emma meticulously arranged her sketches on her workstation, a vibrant display of her creativity and the raw passion that had gradually taken root within her. Amelia glided by, her eyes cold and assessing. Without a moment's hesitation, she paused, leaning against a sleek, modern table. Her voice, smooth yet laced with a cutting edge, dripped with dismissive condescension as she remarked, "I heard the new designer is trying a bit too hard to reinvent the wheel. Let's hope the work speaks louder than desperate attempts at originality." The words stung like icy daggers. In that moment, Emma's inner monologue erupted, a rapid-fire mix of shock, disappointment, and defiant resolve. Desperate? She silently seethed. "I am here to bring a fresh perspective, not to cling to past failures." Her mind raced. Every whispered remark and furtive glance from seasoned colleagues now reeked of underlying judgment, and Amelia's calculated cynicism was the loudest of them all. Over the coming hours, subtle acts of sabotage began to weave through the fabric of the day. A crucial file Emma had painstakingly prepared mysteriously went missing from her desk, only to reappear later, disorganized and incomplete, as if tampered with. Colleagues who once offered nods of support now exchanged knowing looks whenever Amelia walked past. Every misdirected comment, every dismissive smirk, built layers of tension that pressed in on Emma from all sides. The cold efficiency in Amelia's actions sent a clear message. Emma was an interloper in a world run by those with an iron grip on established success, and any deviation from the norm would be ruthlessly exploited. In the midst of this hostile energy, Emma's internal struggle deepened. She recalled the moments of raw passion and determination from the night before, where vulnerability had transformed into an empowering promise of change. Yet, standing under the piercing gaze of office politics, she felt both exposed and isolated. Am I strong enough to withstand this relentless scrutiny? She wondered. A surge of frustration mixed with a steely resolve began to form within her. Every covert sneer and every whispered barb from Amelia crystallized into a rallying cry, urging her not just to survive, but to assert her creative vision with even greater force. There was a particular instance that encapsulated the rising conflict. During a team meeting, a seemingly routine convocation to discuss progress on the upcoming project, Amelia's cool professionalism turned into overt hostility. In the middle of a detailed presentation by Emma, as she discussed her innovative ideas and the inspirations behind her work, Amelia interrupted with a remark that cut through the room's tentative positivity. Are these ideas truly yours? Or are they borrowed from a trend that's long outdated? The remark was sharp, deliberate, and laden with the weight of someone who had spent years curating her own narrative of superiority. Emma felt her pulse surge, her face flushing with anger. But more importantly, a deep, clarifying resolve took root. It was not just a question of creative integrity. It was a personal attack, a challenge to her very right to belong in this esteemed circle. In the silence that followed the interruption, Emma's mind became a battleground of self-doubt and fierce determination. They might think I'm an imposter, but I know my worth. I will not let this undermine my vision, she vowed silently. Every small act of dismissal, every veiled snicker, only spurred her to gather her thoughts and reassert her creative identity. The room, with its polished surfaces and meticulously organized chaos, suddenly became more than a professional arena. It transformed into a stage for a dramatic confrontation that would test Emma's strength and resilience. As the meeting progressed, the tension was palpable. The ambient hum of the office seemed to falter, punctuated by Amelia's cold, calculated inflections and the furtive exchanges between other team members. Emma's internal dialogue grew louder, reinforcing her resolve. I am not here to cower under the weight of outdated expectations. I am here to innovate, to challenge the status quo, and to claim my space. With every whispered comment and every dismissive glance cast in her direction, she felt the spark of rebellion intensify, a fire that promised to transform anxiety into assertive action. By the time the meeting adjourned, it was clear that the undercurrents of conflict were only beginning to surface. While some colleagues maintained a facade of polite indifference, Emma could sense that the tension would not subside on its own. The seeds of rivalry had been sown, and Amelia's icy demeanor loomed ominously as a specter of the challenges ahead. Standing at the threshold of the meeting room, Emma took a deep, steadying breath. She knew that the coming days would demand more than just creativity. They would require her to carve out her own space amid the established power dynamics, to confront and dismantle the subtle sabotage that threatened to undermine her hard-won progress. With a determined glare and a silent promise to herself, Emma resolved that she would not be defined by Amelia's disdain or the whispered doubts of others. Instead, she would rise, fueled by the very conflict that sought to diminish her and transform every challenge into a testament to her enduring spirit. Chapter 3. The Conflict, the sabotaged presentation. The conference room buzzed with an undercurrent of anticipation as Emma prepared to present her carefully crafted design concept, a vivid tapestry of ideas that was the culmination of weeks of relentless hard work. With every meticulously arranged slide, she had woven a narrative that balanced raw creativity with strategic vision, hoping to dazzle her colleagues and secure her place among the innovators at Reed International. Yet, as the presentation began, an unsettling feeling crept over her. At first, it was just a minor glitch, a flicker on the screen, a stutter in the animation. But almost immediately, the familiar precision of her work began to unravel. Midway through her presentation, as she confidently explained the inspiration behind her collection, the screen transformed dramatically. Instead of the carefully curated images of vibrant mood boards and sophisticated sketches, the slides abruptly shifted to a series of absurd comic images. In one frame, brightly colored cartoon characters in mismatched outfits danced across the screen in an entirely unfashionable, almost surreal display. In another, random clip art of clumsy cats in bow ties replaced the elegant lines of her design. The room fell into a stunned silence as bewildered chuckles echoed off the walls. Emma's heart pounded furiously, her face flushing hot with humiliation, while her mind raced to comprehend what was happening. Time seemed to slow as she fumbled with the remote control, desperately trying to revert the presentation to its original state. Her trembling fingers clicked repeatedly, but each attempt only exacerbated the chaos, as if the system itself were in rebellion against her. The slide transitions grew erratic, and the perfectly timed narrative she'd practiced dissolved into a cacophony of mismatched images and jarring sound effects that clashed violently with the sophisticated theme she had envisioned. In that moment, Emma felt the full force of sabotage, a deliberate, cruel act intended to undermine not only her presentation, but her very credibility in the eyes of her peers. Every eye in the room seemed to fixate on her, their expressions, a blend of disbelief and thinly veiled amusement. The soft murmur of colleagues discussing what they were witnessing merged with the louder hum of the malfunctioning computer, creating a discordant symphony of humiliation. Internally, Emma's pulse raced as she fought to maintain control, her mind torn between the overwhelming urge to retreat and the burning determination to reclaim her dignity. "They think I'm a fraud," she thought bitterly, "but I won't let this define me." In the midst of the disaster, her inner voice roared with a newfound resolve. The images on the screen, as ludicrous as they were, ignited a surge of indignation that washed away her initial panic. A fire kindled within her, a fierce, unyielding determination to not only repair the technical fiasco, but also to confront the person responsible for orchestrating this humiliation. The sting of embarrassment quickly transformed into a sharp, focused desire to set things right, to prove that her work, her passion, would not be derailed by petty sabotage. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for clues among the scattered glances of her colleagues, the subtle smirk of a senior designer, the barely perceptible nod exchanged between two team members. Everything spoke to a network of quiet conspiracies and hidden agendas that had managed to infiltrate the sanctum of creativity. This wasn't a mere technical glitch. It was a carefully laid trap, a systematic attempt to shake her confidence and discredit her efforts. Determination surged through Emma's veins. With a steadying breath, she silenced the critical voices in her head and pushed herself into action. "I'm sorry for the interruption," she began, her voice surprisingly steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. "There seems to be a technical issue. Please bear with me while I resolve it." The words were measured, a professional shield against the storm of criticism that was sure to follow. In those few seconds, she tapped into every reserve of strength and resolve, her mind already strategizing how to salvage the presentation and restore her reputation. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, attempting to override the malfunction, while her eyes scanned the room for any sign of the saboteur's identity. Each second stretched long, filled with tension and the palpable anticipation of discovery. The screen remained stubbornly stuck on the absurd images, fueling an uncomfortable mix of anger, vulnerability, and fierce determination in Emma. As the room's chatter subsided into an uneasy silence, Emma vowed, with a steely glint in her eyes, that she would not let this sabotage go unanswered. Even if it meant challenging the very fabric of office politics, she was prepared to confront the person behind the chaos. That cliffhanger moment, where technology had failed her, yet her spirit surged with defiance, signaled a turning point in her journey. Standing there, still grappling with the aftermath of the sabotaged presentation, Emma's mind was already racing ahead. "I will find out who did this," she silently promised herself. "And I will prove that I deserve to be here." The room was tense, the echoes of ridicule and uncertainty mingling with her resolute heartbeat. And in that charged silence, as the absurd images on the screen seemed to mock her every effort, the stage was set for a confrontation that promised to redefine not only her career, but also the very core of her self-worth. Chapter 3. The conflict, confronting sabotage and asserting independence. The aftermath of the sabotaged presentation left a tangible chill lingering in the air, as if the room itself had absorbed the sting of humiliation. The conference room's atmosphere, once buzzing with the usual blend of quiet excitement and guarded camaraderie, now became a battleground of whispered accusations and tension. Emma, still reeling from the shock of her presentation turning into a farcical mess, could feel the weight of every scrutinizing gaze. The moment for evasiveness had passed. It was time to confront the source of the betrayal. Without waiting for further murmurs to swell into a tide of doubt, Emma rose from her seat, her determined gaze seeking the one person who had orchestrated this assault on her integrity, Amelia. In a hallway adjacent to the meeting room, the polished surfaces and muted corporate lighting framed a terse confrontation waiting to unfold. "Amelia," Emma said, her voice low but carrying an undeniable firmness that brooked no argument. The single word cut through the charged silence like a sharpened blade. Amelia paused, her expression a blend of icy composure and barely concealed satisfaction. She folded her arms, her eyes narrowing as she regarded Emma with an air that conveyed, "You are in my territory now." "Emma," she replied coolly, her tone measured, "I trust you figured out what happened." The insinuation in her words was clear, a mockery that Emma's work was nothing more than a fad, easily manipulated by those in power. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, but her resolve only strengthened with each passing second. "Do not patronize me," she shot back, her voice even yet bristling with the heat of repressed emotions. "I poured everything into that presentation, and you decided to sabotage it." The words felt both like an accusation and a declaration, an assertion of her worth in an environment where it was being relentlessly questioned. For a moment, the tension between them was palpable, a head-on collision of clashing ambitions. Amelia's cool facade wavered slightly, a flicker of disdain crossing her features. "Sabotage?" she repeated, as if testing the term on her tongue. Perhaps it was simply an unfortunate technical malfunction, a lesson in ensuring one's work is bulletproof. Her tone dripped with condescension. "That wasn't a malfunction," Emma countered sharply. "And you know it." The conviction in her voice resonated in the quiet corridor, and for a heartbeat, every hushed whisper and sideways glance from passing colleagues amplified the drama of the confrontation. "I've spent weeks refining my designs and concepts, and your petty interference not only embarrasses me, it undermines the entire project." Amelia's eyes flashed with a cool, calculated anger, yet she maintained her measured tone. "If you're so confident in your abilities, why did you leave gaps for others to influence your work? Innovation sometimes demands collaboration, Emma." Her words, laced with a subtle threat, aimed to destabilize Emma's newfound self-belief. Emma's internal monologue blazed with defiance. "I don't need your validation," she thought fiercely. With a steely gaze, she replied, Collaboration is about sharing ideas, not exploiting them for personal gain. I know exactly what I'm capable of, and I refuse to let anyone, especially not you, dictate the value of my work." Her tone carried both vulnerability and strength, a declaration that she would no longer be an easy target for manipulation. The exchange drew the attention of nearby staff. Whispers and furtive glances began to ripple through the hallway. In that charged space, office politics transformed into personal territory, and the power dynamics shifted visibly. Emma's confident retort, delivered with crisp determination, challenged not only Amelia's authority, but the very culture of intimidation that had permeated the team. Amelia's cool exterior cracked imperceptibly. "Be careful, Emma," she warned softly, a veiled admonition hidden within her words. "In this environment, every action has its repercussions." Her voice, though low, carried a weight that hinted at the possibility of far-reaching consequences, a reminder that power was not given freely in this cutthroat arena. But Emma stood firm, her eyes fixed on Amelia's with unwavering resolve. "I'm not here to play games," she stated, each word deliberate and resonant. "I joined Reed International because I believed in a vision of creativity and excellence, one that is not tarnished by sabotage or petty rivalries. I will not allow anyone to undermine my work or my worth." The declaration was not just for Amelia. It was a silent message to every colleague who had ever doubted her. She would fight for her place in this company, and she would prove, through her work and integrity, that she belonged. For a long, suspended moment, both women locked eyes, a silent battle of wills that spoke volumes about ambition, pride, and the courage to stand alone in the face of adversity. The corridor seemed to hold its breath, as the atmosphere grew almost tangible with the promise of change. Emma's voice softened slightly, not out of submission, but as a final, resolute challenge. "I suggest you rethink your approach, Amelia," she said, her tone both respectful and firm. "Because if this is the way you handle challenges, then you might find that the real cost isn't just in losing trust. It's in losing respect." With that, a new silence fell. The quiet was heavy with the implications of their exchange, and as colleagues resumed their hushed conversations in the background, the seed of a dramatic shift was planted. Emma turned and walked away, her steps echoing with determination. Every whispered comment and sideways glance now signaled not defeat, but the beginning of a battle for her dignity, a promise that she would assert her independence in this ruthless, corporate landscape. Behind her, the reflective eyes of those present shimmered with a mix of admiration and apprehension. The confrontation had not only unsettled the office hierarchy, but had lit a spark of change, a subtle shift in power dynamics that hinted at an emerging revolution, where integrity and talent could eventually triumph over calculated sabotage. And as Emma disappeared around the corner, her mind was clear. This would be a turning point, and nothing, not even the cold determination of a rival, could extinguish the fire that now burned within her. Chapter 3. The Conflict. The CEO steps in, and rumors escalate. In the tense aftermath of the sabotaged presentation, whispers had already begun to ripple through the corridors of Reed International. The air was thick with murmurs of disapproval and calculated gossip, each hushed tone adding to the growing pressure that Emma felt like it was closing in around her. As if sensing that the current course was spiraling out of control, the steady cadence of office life was momentarily disrupted by the confident, measured steps of CEO Alexander Reed. Alex moved with purpose through the workspace, his presence slicing through the low, uneasy hum of conversations. When he reached the heart of the commotion, where Emma still stood with a mix of wounded pride and burning resolve, he stopped and surveyed the scene with thoughtful calm. The room fell into a brief, expectant silence, as eyes darted from one colleague to another, all aware that something significant was about to unfold. "Good morning, everyone," Alex began, his tone warm yet firm, a blend of supportive authority and genuine concern. His gaze shifted deliberately toward Emma, and in that moment, It was as if the room's tension was reframed by his mere presence. "I've been made aware of a technical issue during our latest presentation," he stated, his voice carrying the unmistakable cadence of someone who had seen enough to know when to intervene. "It appears there was an interference that disrupted the flow of our meeting. I trust that our talented team can identify and resolve these issues promptly." His measured words, spoken in a modern conversational tone, rippled through the office. Some colleagues exchanged glances laden with both relief and a hint of resentment, their murmurs hinting at the possibility of favoritism. The buzz of office gossip began to build quietly, a delicate undercurrent of speculation that swept through the room like a secret wave. Could it be that Alex's intervention was more personal than professional? Was there something deeper at play beyond a simple technical glitch? Emma felt a mixture of gratitude and trepidation surge within her. On one hand, Alex's defense of her was a lifeline, a clear statement that the integrity of her work was not in question. "Thank you, Mr. Reed," she managed to say softly, her voice betraying both relief and an emotional vulnerability she had been carefully trying to conceal. Yet on the other hand, each supportive word from her CEO was fraught with the complication of their shared history, the lingering tension that had ignited between them the previous night. His intervention, while professionally sound, also fed the office rumors that perhaps their connection went beyond mere camaraderie in the workplace. Alex continued, "I want to ensure that we all work in an environment where creativity isn't stifled by interference or undermined by petty rivalries." His eyes, intense yet compassionate, momentarily met Emma's, imparting a silent message that resonated deep within her core. The supportive tone in his words stirred a sense of hope among the team, a reassurance that talent and dedication would always find a champion. But it also set off a chain reaction among the staff. Whispered conversations began to bubble up, laden with insinuations about personal alliances and questions of undue favoritism. The mix of professional integrity and the unspoken complexities of their connection left Emma in a limbo of conflicting emotions. Internally, she wrestled with the realization that being defended by Alex was both a validation of her abilities and a double-edged sword. Am I being recognized for my talent, or am I being used as a pawn in a larger game? Her mind churned with these thoughts as she quietly observed the shifting dynamics around her. While a part of her was immensely grateful for the support, finally her work was being taken seriously, a darker corner of her heart trembled at the cost of such defense. She wondered if this would forever tie her professional fate to his, leaving little room for her own independent identity. Across the room, as colleagues resumed their work with a renewed sense of order, a soft murmur of rumors began to take shape. Snatches of conversation that hinted at secret meetings, after-hours discussions, and a subtle, growing tension between the senior leadership and the newer team members. Even those who had once shown little interest in office politics could not help but notice the unspoken magnetism between Alex and Emma, further complicating an already volatile environment. Alex, having addressed the room, moved on to consult with his team, leaving Emma to process the charged moment in solitude. The weight of his words lingered in the air, a blend of reassurance and an implicit warning that no act of sabotage, no matter how small, would be tolerated under his watchful eye. As Emma turned back to her desk, she felt a renewed flame of defiance rising within her. This was her chance not just to reclaim her reputation, but to assert her independence in a space where power dynamics often blurred the lines between professional merit and personal influence. In the midst of the escalating office whispers and the quiet assessment of every sideways glance, Emma made a silent vow. I will stand on my own merits. I will let my work speak louder than the rumors. Her determination resonated with every fiber of her being, a counterpoint to the uncertainty that her recent confrontation had wrought. Though the supportive intervention of her CEO was meant to restore balance, it also underscored the intricate dance of alliances and rivalries, an ever-present reminder that in this competitive environment, every act of recognition could carry hidden costs. With the morning's crisis gradually settling into its own uneasy rhythm, Emma resolved to channel both the validation and the complexities of the moment into her work. As she sat down to reassemble her presentation and strategize a path forward, the echoes of Alex's words mingled with the murmurs of office gossip, setting the stage for a future where she would be forced to navigate not only the technical challenges of her role, but the delicate intricacies of personal ambition and professional integrity. The delicate balance of support and suspicion hung in the air like a fragile promise, one that Emma intended to honor by proving, once and for all, that her talent was unmistakable and her independence unassailable. Chapter 4. Falling Action, the Resignation Crisis and Emotional Fallout. The relentless weight of whispered judgments, internal battles, and the cold sting of office politics had finally shattered Emma's fragile equilibrium. That morning, amid the dissonance of corporate ambition and personal vulnerability, a painful clarity began to crystallize within her. As she sat at her desk, the scattered remnants of her disrupted presentation still echoing in her mind, she felt an unbearable pressure, a silent scream from within that demanded liberation from the constant scrutiny. Her thoughts swirled like storm clouds, heavy with the memories of stinging comments, suspicious glances, and the ever-present sense of being an outsider. "I'm not just a mistake or a pawn in someone else's game," she silently vowed. Yet every whispered rumor and each sidelong look threatened to shatter the delicate hope she had fought so hard to nurture. The burden of proving her worth had become a relentless, exhausting echo, a reminder of all the times her integrity was questioned, of every subtle act that undermined her confidence. In that moment, with the office noise fading into a distant murmur, Emma realized that security, however comforting it once had been, was now a prison. Her mind raced as she opened her laptop and began drafting an email, a resignation letter, that felt like both a final goodbye and a desperate bid for independence. The stark, blinking cursor stared back at her, indifferent, yet demanding. Each keystroke was an act of rebellion, a painful yet liberating acknowledgement that she could no longer endure the suffocating dynamics of her workplace. As the words began to form on the screen, her heart pounded and her internal monologue intensified. "I have given my all, yet every step forward is met with doubt and derision. How many more sleepless nights will I spend questioning my value?" The words flowed onto the screen, each sentence a testament to her long-hidden frustrations and a declaration of her resolve to reclaim her self-respect. The email was raw, unpolished, and brutally honest. With each line, she scrawled away the facade that had masked her true potential, exposing the vulnerability that had been repeatedly used against her. Outside her window, the city roared with indifference. The same city that had once ignited her dreams now seemed to mirror the harsh realities of relentless ambition. Yet within that vast urban expanse, Emma found a bittersweet solace. The thought of leaving behind the familiar cadence of office life was both terrifying and liberating. As she reviewed her resignation letter one final time, the vivid imagery of her journey crystallized in her mind. The taste of champagne still lingering on her lips after a night of passion, the cold, clinical ambiance of the boardroom where her ideas were dissected, and the oppressive silence of whispered gossip that followed her every move. Every word she had typed carried the duality of liberation and heartbreak. She knew that sending this email was more than a mere act of quitting. It was a declaration of self-worth, a bold refusal to let someone else's manipulations define her future. Yet as she hesitated, hovering over the send button, a surge of doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. Will this act of defiance free me? Or will it mark the beginning of a new chapter filled with unforeseen consequences? The internal conflict was fierce, a battle between the desire to reclaim control over her life and the fear of destabilizing the fragile security she had known, however flawed it was. In that moment of stillness, as the world outside continued its relentless pace, Emma's determination solidified. With trembling fingers and a deep, steadying breath, she pressed the send button. The email flew into the digital void, A bold, irrevocable testament to her need for independence and a symbolic severing of the chains that had held her captive for too long. The action reverberated through her mind like a shot in the dark, a moment of pure, unfiltered honesty and defiance that would forever alter the trajectory of her journey. Almost immediately, the quiet hum of her workstation was replaced by the eerie silence of anticipation. In the wake of her decision, every second stretched endlessly. Office whispers, sly, speculative, and laden with both admiration and disdain, seemed to echo around her like ghosts from her past. Emma's heart beat rapidly as she sat back, the realization of what she had just done settling over her like a heavy, bittersweet shroud. There was now no turning back. Her resignation had been dispatched, and her future, once steeped in uncertainty, hung precariously in the balance. In that charged silence, with her email sent and her independence both claimed and questioned, Emma was left alone with the tumult of her emotions. The question that now loomed in the air was stark and unavoidable. What would be the fallout of this decisive act? The consequences, shrouded in mystery, promised to reshape not only her own destiny but also the intricate web of relationships within Reed International. As she gazed out the window at the sprawling New York skyline, Emma's mind churned with anticipation and apprehension, knowing that the next moments would determine whether her leap of faith would lead to a renaissance of self or the unraveling of everything she had fought so hard to build. Chapter 4. Falling Action. Aftermath of the resignation and crisis of identity. The office had almost returned to its relentless routine, a steady pulse of clicking keyboards, hushed phone conversations, and the unceasing murmur of business as usual. Yet for Emma, time had come to a standstill. In the wake of her impulsive resignation, the familiar corridors and carefully orchestrated bustle felt alien, cold, and indifferent. A stark contrast to the fiery passion and raw vulnerability that had defined the previous days. Sitting at an empty desk that once symbolized her entry into the corporate world, Emma could almost hear the echo of whispered gossip and the silent judgment of colleagues who now navigated their tasks with a detached precision. The very space that had once promised creative liberation now bore an icy chill. A tangible reminder that even the boldest acts of independence carried a heavy price. As she stared blankly at her computer screen, the remnants of the resignation, email still fresh in her mind, a deep sense of isolation began to settle in her chest. Was this really the liberation I sought, or have I only traded one kind of confinement for another? The question reverberated inside her, casting long shadows over the decisions she had made. Office routines continued unabated, oblivious to her internal upheaval. Meetings were held, projects were discussed, and deadlines marched on. All while Emma felt increasingly detached from the spirit that had once driven her to pursue her dreams in this very city. In the midst of the indifferent routine, Emma's thoughts turned inward as she reflected on the identity she once knew. Memories of her early days, filled with raw ambition, a fierce desire to create, and the unapologetic pursuit of her vision, clashed with the current reality of a world that valued conformity over originality. The vibrant, tenacious spirit that had led her here now seemed to flicker, struggling against the cold wind of doubt. The office, with its sleek design and unyielding efficiency, had become a symbol of the sacrifices required to assert oneself. Independence, she now realized, was not a burst of cathartic freedom. It was a slow, painful untangling from the familiar webs of security and belonging. The act of resigning had promised a clean break, a chance to reclaim her self-worth, but instead, it had plunged her into a crisis of identity. Every tick of the clock echoed like a reminder that the comfort of routine was intact for everyone else. Meanwhile, she was left to navigate the raw, uncharted terrain of her own emotions. Emma's gaze drifted toward the large windows framing the bustling New York skyline. The city looked unchanged, vibrant, ambitious, and unyielding. Yet within her, a profound internal shift was taking place. The dazzling lights and ceaseless energy that once fueled her passion now seemed indifferent to the cost of independence. She could feel the duality of her desires. On one hand, the need to break free from the suffocating expectations of office politics, and on the other, a lingering fear that stepping away might sever the ties that had, however imperfectly, given her a sense of belonging. In a quiet moment of solitude, Emma revisited the dreams that had sparked her journey. She recalled the sketches, the late-night brainstorming sessions, and the fearless passion that had defined her creative soul. Those memories, though tinged with nostalgia, also illuminated a painful truth. True independence demanded sacrifice. The security of a steady job had provided not only material stability, but also a sense of identity that was now slipping away. The freedom she craved came at a cost that she was only beginning to comprehend. A knot of regret tightened in Emma's chest as she thought of the support she had once felt from her colleagues, and more importantly, from the man who had once stood by her side. The personal connection that had offered a flicker of hope now felt complicated by the weight of professional consequences. Did I trade too much in a desperate bid to prove myself? The thought haunted her like a persistent shadow. Yet, amid the overwhelming tide of regret and introspection, a quiet, almost imperceptible spark of resilience began to glow. Emma realized that this profound moment of crisis was not the end, but a critical turning point, a painful yet necessary purge from the old ways of validation that had no place in her future. The vulnerability she now experienced was both a wound and a source of potential healing, a reminder that, sometimes, the greatest breakthroughs come from the deepest moments of self-doubt. As the day slowly advanced, the office routine resumed its mechanical cadence, indifferent to the silent storm raging within her. Emma sat back, her eyes tracing the patterns of light and shadow on the floor, feeling the weight of her decision settle into every fiber of her being. With a deep, steadying breath, she resolved that this crisis of identity, however excruciating, would ultimately be the forge in which she remade herself. A tentative hope flickered in her mind, that out of the ashes of her resignation, a more authentic version of herself would arise, one who embraced both independence and the possibility of new beginnings, regardless of the sacrifices it entailed. In that quiet, conflicted moment, Emma knew that the path ahead was uncertain, and its consequences might be fraught with challenges. But there was also a promise that she would emerge stronger and truer to her own vision, even if the journey demanded an arduous reckoning with her inner doubts. With a final lingering look at the fading light outside the window, Emma silently vowed that this emotional fallout was not an end, but the quiet prelude to the rebirth she had long yearned for, a chance to redefine her identity on her own terms. Chapter 4. Falling Action. Rebirth at Carter Studio. A few weeks later, the relentless echoes of corporate machinations and whispered judgments faded into the distance, replaced by a new, vibrant melody, the sound of a dream coming to life. Emma stood before the glass doors of Carter Studio, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and quiet triumph. The building itself was modest compared to the towering giants of Manhattan, yet its unassuming charm belied a potent promise of creative rebirth. This was her sanctuary, her personal haven, where she would redefine success on her own terms. As she pushed the door open, the studio burst into view with vibrant colors and dynamic textures that immediately set a tone of boundless possibility. The space was bathed in warm, natural light, streaming through oversized windows, which framed a view of a bustling street below. The walls were freshly painted in a soft, inspirational hue, a gentle blend of coral and cream that evoked both creativity and optimism. Everywhere, curated art and striking design elements coexisted with personal touches that revealed the heart and soul of its new owner. The air inside Carter Studio carried a delightful medley of scents. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the subtle fragrance of new fabric and the faint, comforting notes of aged wood from handcrafted furnishings. The floor, laid with warm, natural hardwood, resonated softly underfoot, each step a reminder that this space was built from resilience and reinvention. In one corner, an array of mood boards displayed inspiring sketches, fabric swatches, and photos of iconic designs. In another, sleek workstations buzzed with the quiet energy of collaboration, each desk an invitation to innovate. Among the early risers, Kit was already there, a whirlwind of enthusiastic energy and genuine support. Dressed in vibrant colors that perfectly mirrored the studio's lively atmosphere, she moved around with a confident grace, her laughter and encouraging words infusing the space with warmth. "Emma, look at this place. It's not just a studio, it's a statement," Kit declared with a wide grin that radiated pride. Her eyes shone with admiration, and in that moment, Emma felt the burdens of her past melt away, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. Emma walked through the studio, running her fingers along a marble countertop, feeling the cool, smooth surface under her touch. Every detail had been meticulously chosen to reflect the fusion of art and innovation, a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal corridors of Reed International. Here, creativity was tangible. The very walls seemed to breathe inspiration. She paused by a corner arranged as a cozy consultation area, where a plump, comfortable sofa faced a low coffee table adorned with small vases of fresh blooms and curated magazines on design. This area, designed to spark dialogue and nurture ideas, felt like a literal and metaphorical space for new beginnings. Despite the lingering memories of past corporate drama and the painful fallout of her resignation, standing in Carter's studio imbued Emma with an undeniable sense of liberation. Her creative vision, once stifled by office politics and whispered doubts, now flourished in an environment that celebrated originality and individuality. The buzz of the studio carried the promise of projects that were authentically her own, projects that would not only redefine her career, but also reaffirm her self-worth. In a quiet moment, with the sun casting gentle shadows over her newly arranged workspace, Emma reflected on the path that had led her here. The rejection, the cold stares, and the incessant challenges she had faced at Reed International were not signs of defeat, but rather stepping stones to this transformative moment. The freedom that came with reinventing herself was both exhilarating and humbling. "This is my chance to show the world, and more importantly myself, that I'm not defined by the bitterness of the past, but by the possibilities of the future," she mused. As the day went on, the studio buzzed with early whispers of a new project, a creative showcase that promised to launch Carter's studio into the local design scene. Emma's team, though small, was driven and intimate, a carefully selected group of kindred spirits who shared her passion for art and innovation. They gathered around a large table, animatedly discussing ideas, laughing, and sketching out possibilities. In that collective energy, Emma saw the first tangible signs of her rebirth, a team united in the belief that they were creating something remarkable together. A subtle, celebratory air permeated the space, tinged with reflective optimism. Each shared smile, every nod of agreement, reinforced Emma's belief that this was exactly where she was meant to be. The corporate drama that had once ensnared her seemed a distant memory now, replaced by the vibrant, supportive atmosphere of Carter studio. Her heart swelled with gratitude, not only for the fresh start, but for the realization that true success was measured not by titles or accolades, but by the courage to embrace one's authentic self. At the close of the day, as dusk melted into the soft luminescence of city lights outside the studio, Emma stood by one of the large windows, watching the world go by. The reflections in the glass were rich with the hues of change, deep blues and gentle ambers that spoke of both hardship and hope. In that reflective moment, she knew that her journey had only just begun. The challenges ahead were real, and the road might be fraught with obstacles, but the overwhelming sense of creative freedom and personal reinvention filled her with an unwavering optimism. Carter's studio was not merely a physical space, it was a manifestation of Emma's dreams, a canvas upon which she would paint the next chapters of her life. And as the soft murmur of the night drifted in, mingling with the quiet energy inside, Emma allowed herself a small, confident smile. She was ready to embrace the future, to turn every challenge into an opportunity, and to celebrate the beautiful, unpredictable journey of rediscovering who she was meant to be. Chapter 5. The Resolution. The Showcase and Triumph. The night of the showcase arrived with an electric intensity that seemed to set the very air alight. Carter Studio had transformed into a veritable playground of creativity and innovation, a stage where Emma's vision was about to burst forth in a dazzling display of artistic triumph. As guests began to stream into the venue, the space hummed with anticipation, the polished surfaces catching the glimmer of sequins and the flash of high-end cameras like a river of stars. The runway, a sleek modern catwalk, stretched out before the audience, its surface reflecting the vibrant, pulsating rhythm of the music that reverberated through the room. Each beat seemed perfectly synchronized with the heartbeat of the city beyond those windows, forging a visceral connection between Emma's world and the pulsating energy of New York at night. Models, clad in Emma's designs, glided down the runway with effortless poise, each outfit a statement of bold innovation, each step punctuating the triumph of her creative spirit. From the wings, Emma watched with a swelling heart and trembling hands, every detail burning vividly in her memory. The intricate cuts and sweeping lines of her garments sparkled under the stage lights. Sequins caught and refracted the light, casting tiny, brilliant reflections across the room. The atmosphere was charged with an intoxicating mixture of exhilaration and nervous anticipation, as though every note of the music, every murmur of the crowd, carried the promise of a new beginning. The applause that erupted after each model's walk was a thunderous, validating cheer, reverberating through the halls of Carter's studio and echoing deep within Emma's soul. As the show progressed, the energy in the room built steadily. The audience, a mix of industry professionals, press, and local influencers, sat enraptured by the display of ingenuity and passion unfolding before them. For Emma, each ovation felt like a personal victory, a confirmation that her work resonated deeply, that her creative journey was not just viable, but vital. Her internal surge of pride was mingled with a raw, unfiltered emotion, a gratitude for the long, arduous process that had brought her to this pinnacle, and a fierce declaration that she had finally carved out a space of her own in a world that had once doubted her every step. And then, as if the universe itself wished to punctuate the night's incredible momentum, a hush fell over the audience at an unexpected moment. Out of the soft dancing shadows near the back of the room, Alex emerged. His entrance was subtle, yet mesmerizing, a silhouette framed by the shifting luminescence of the stage lights and the glittering backdrop of the city skyline. His tailored suit exuded the same magnetic authority that Emma had seen in him before, but tonight there was something more tender. In his gaze, a mixture of admiration and unresolved passion that immediately sent a ripple of tension through the charged atmosphere. For a heartbeat, the vibrant beat of the showcase seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. Emma, amidst the overwhelming applause, caught his eye. In that brief, electrifying moment, their connection was palpable, a silent conversation that bridged the distance between the corporate world that had once scrutinized her and the raw, personal triumph that she now embodied. The energy of the room, already so infectious and spirited, now carried an undercurrent of possibility and impending change. As the show continued, every model's graceful stride, every burst of applause, was tinged with an unspoken promise, one that hinted at the complex interplay between personal success and professional destiny. Emma's designs, celebrated by the audience, were not only a testament to her skill, but also an emblem of her hard-fought reinvention. Each outfit on the runway was a declaration of independence, a vivid burst of color and texture that represented the culmination of weeks of dedication, resilience, and defiance. Yet, in the midst of the revelry, Emma's heart thrummed with a bittersweet uncertainty. Alex's reappearance stirred a turbulent mix of emotions within her. a juxtaposition of gratitude for his support, a lingering spark of last night's passion, and a quiet apprehension about the complications of their intertwined fates. His silent acknowledgement of her achievements, the way his eyes lingered with a mix of pride and something deeper, made her wonder. Could this newfound success coexist with the personal connection they had so unexpectedly forged? The showcase reached its crescendo with a final, breathtaking presentation, a moment where the lights dimmed and the models took a united step down the runway, the entire room erupting into an overwhelming, rapturous ovation. In that climactic instant, as the music swelled and every heart in the room beat in unison, Emma felt an unparalleled rush of triumph. Tears threatened to spill over, each one a reflection of her journey from isolation to creative freedom. And then, just as the echoes of applause began to subside, a suspension of time heralded the next move. A deliberate, silent pause where Alex's presence loomed large in the periphery. His reappearance, subtle yet undeniable, promised that the story was far from over. The unresolved passion between them, the tension of unspoken words, and the potential for a heartfelt reconciliation, hovered like a fragile yet potent caress in the cool air of the studio. In that moment of suspense, as the crowd's cheers gave way to an expectant hush, Emma stood at the brink of a new chapter. A chapter that would intertwine the triumph of her creative vision with the intricate, unpredictable dance of personal connection. The stage was set, the narrative poised to take an unexpected, heartfelt turn, and Emma, glowing from her victory yet aware of the lingering complexities, knew that this night would mark not just a celebration of her work, but the beginning of a deeper, more transformative journey into what it truly meant to be free. Chapter 5: The Resolution, Reconciliation, and a New Beginning. In the soft afterglow of the showcase, as the last echoes of applause faded into an anticipatory hush, Emma found herself alone on a quiet balcony overlooking the twinkling city. The night had woven a tapestry of triumph and vulnerability, and now, with every breath, she felt the weight of unspoken words and unresolved emotions calling her toward a final reckoning. It wasn't long before Alex, his presence still resonating from the evening's charged energy, joined her on the balcony. The cool air outside offered a gentle contrast to the warmth of their shared memories, and in that quiet space, the corporate clamor and office politics melted away, leaving only the honest cadence of two hearts ready to speak. Alex's expression was earnest, his eyes softening in a way that betrayed the guarded facade he usually maintained. "Emma," he began, his voice low and steady, "I've been thinking about everything that happened. The showcase, the tension, and all the chaos. I realize that in trying to mend a situation, I may have been too distant, too wrapped up in the professional order. I want you to know that I'm truly sorry." His apology was not forced. It carried the weight of genuine remorse for the unintended consequences of his actions as a leader, as well as the complex, unspoken bond that had blossomed between them. For a long moment, Emma simply looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and lingering hurt. The words hung in the space between them, delicate yet profound, and then she spoke, her tone soft but measured. "Alex, tonight was more than just a celebration of my work. It was the culmination of so much struggle. I felt isolated and judged, and when you intervened, it meant everything. But it also complicated things. I'm grateful for your support, yet I need to understand where we stand, beyond just a professional relationship." Her voice wavered, revealing the crux of her internal battle, a desire to be seen for her true self, not just as a protégé or a token of success within the company. He stepped closer, his hand gently brushing against hers, an unspoken promise of solidarity. "Emma, I care about you. Not only as a brilliant designer who brought new life to our projects, but as someone whose presence has shown me a different side of leadership. I know I've been in a position where my decisions, even my silence at times, may have inadvertently hurt you. I'm not just your CEO or your colleague. I'm someone who truly values the person you are. I love you, Emma." The words, spoken with modern simplicity and heartfelt conviction, were like a revelation, breaking through the lingering tensions and revealing a shared desire for authenticity. In that pivotal moment, as the cool breeze enveloped them, Emma felt something shift deep within her. The vulnerability she had guarded for so long melted into the warmth of his admission. "I love you too," she replied, her voice trembling with relief and quiet joy. "I was afraid that in pursuing this dream, in carving out my own space, I would lose myself and everything I stood for. But knowing that you see me, truly see me, it gives me the strength to keep moving forward." Her confession was both an embrace of the raw, passionate connection they had found and a declaration of her own renewed self-worth. Their conversation wove effortlessly between hope and the acknowledgement of past pain. They spoke candidly about the challenges of balancing ambition and personal desire, the complexities of leadership in an unforgiving corporate world, and the ways in which their shared vulnerabilities had transformed them. The dialogue was as modern and crisp as it was deeply reflective, a testament to the growth they had both experienced. Each word echoed their resolve to forge an equal and authentic partnership, one built not on power dynamics, but on mutual respect, understanding, and love. As the early hours of the morning yielded to the soft light of a new day, the city below began to stir with promise. In the background, they could hear the distant clamor of a corporate gala commencing, a celebration of achievements and new beginnings that, in a way, mirrored their own personal journey. The gala was a chance for the company to showcase its success. And now, it also symbolized a fresh start for Emma and Alex. Their quiet conversation on the balcony had bridged the gap between professional duty and personal heartache, paving the way for a future where both aspects could coexist harmoniously. Hand in hand, Emma and Alex rejoined their colleagues at the gala. The atmosphere was festive yet understated, the kind of sophisticated celebration that encapsulated both the triumphs of hard work and the delicate beauty of personal transformation. As they moved through the crowd, exchanging genuine smiles and whispered affirmations of gratitude, it was clear that a new chapter had begun. Their reconciliation, rooted in candid emotion and a mutual vow to rebuild, signaled the end of past conflicts and the promise of a future defined by hope, creativity, and authentic partnership. In that final cinematic moment, as the applause of the gala swelled around them and the soft glow of chandeliers lit up their faces, Emma looked at Alex with renewed determination. "This is just the beginning," she whispered, a promise as tender as it was fierce. And as they embraced amid the celebration, it was evident that together they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in vision, bound by truth, and propelled by a love that was as vibrant as the city itself.